That's just straight up beautiful, by the way.
Right here. This is fine. Just me in between those two. This is fine. This is the greatest ending ever. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Espoir du Vide, and today I want to play some more Sacrarium Pario. While this game is still a demo, there's been a major update and more added to the story. And it's kind of ominous that in the title screen, Vivere and Violo aren't walking on the beach together no more. So to give a little rundown of everything that's happened in the game, you play as a super powerful and well-known mercenary who is, captured on a pirate ship. And so your captors were afraid to sail into something called the Blood Ocean, where a terrifying urban legend is said to live. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly who we encounter. Much like Hamos in the other Sacrarium game, this is Violo. Violo is cursed as the creator. He's also blind and very, very cute. Violo kidnaps us and takes us back to his creepy island in the Blood Ocean. Usually he either keeps people as prisoners or sends them home, but for some strange reason he's decided to keep us. We meet his creation and lover, Vivere, who doesn't seem too happy that we're here. We learn that Violo usually doesn't keep captives more than 7 days. That's about as much time as we have to survive. We overhear him talking to the other living gods through a magic mirror. Amare, Nakare, and Hamos from the game Sacrarium Pario. Together you formulate a plan to get you off of the island, because apparently you shouldn't be there. Violo has some kind of rule or agreement, where he's only allowed to capture bad people, and you don't fit that description, so the other living gods wants to help you get off the island. But they can't do it right away. They formulate a plan to send you a boat when the waters are ready, so all you would need to do is survive, and get off the island, and get to the beach when the boat arrives. Meanwhile, there's something inside you that Violo is extremely interested in. He noticed it right from the beginning, but apparently you have some kind of magic void inside of your body. A void that he seems to be able to dump endless magic into. And so he and Vivere have been giving you small tests and experiments. Apparently, the void in your soul would enable you to kill a god. And since this void can be passed genetically, the gods don't want you walking around no more. They've made every friend you've ever had betray you. But all that's done is summon demons of betrayal who've protected you from the gods' power, but you seem to be safe in the middle of this power struggle. On Violo's island, neither the gods nor the devils can reach you, so for the time, you're safe. However, the fact remains that you might need to escape these two. Unless you can get them to really like you, you're still not safe. However, these two don't seem that bad.
Everybody got that?
So I hope I explained that in a way that's understandable, because it's a lot. But in the last video, we reached the 7th day and was still alive, so let's see what happens after that. Either way, the 7th day had been reached, and I was alive. That had to count for something. That scroll haunted me in the days to come. I read it over and over again, trying to place what events fell where. Some of them were easy enough to figure out. Others left me wondering. I found myself questioning every time a stick broke underfoot at a bad time, every job opportunity I missed. Did I ever have any control? My body ached with the weight of what I'd endured in the past, and the phantom smell of blood and fire made my head spin. It made me wonder just how much of my life had really been my own. My new reality left a bitter taste on my tongue and dozens of questions. The most important one haunted me more than the rest. Who was that betrayal devil working for? I racked my head for any information I had on devils. The smaller ones were a nuisance to mercenaries, more akin to rats than wolves. I'd never seen the effects of one strong enough to circumvent the gods. I shook my head. That was inaccurate now. Still, it made no sense to me for a devil to care about keeping me alive, even if they're short-sighted like the pair claimed. It was hard to believe that a devil who so meticulously kept me alive was short-sighted in any capacity. The pair were leaving something out, something critical. I didn't know how I felt about it. The pair lying to me seemed highly unlikely. There had to be something else going on, and I doubted they were just going to tell it to me outright. No, they'd hold all their cards close to their chest, careful and considerate of when to play them. It felt almost too coincidental that the two discovered a vendetta against me while they were still trying to get something from me. Perhaps it was a reverse death threat. You will die if you leave, so you have to stay here? I don't know. I might have been infantilizing their capacity for cruelty. At the very least, they struck me as the type to leverage this information. I needed to learn more, and there was only one group of people I could talk to. Oh yeah, the mirror. The castle bustled with energy and chaos. Aberrations and constructs hobbled about, and the castle itself seemed preoccupied with managing the spell work to come. That made it all too easy to walk around. I matched my pace to the hustle around me, blending in despite my circumstances. Violo's study radiated enough magic to make my teeth ache. The taste of iron and sugar rested heavy on my tongue. I lingered nearby, watching the door. Then I spotted him finally exit, taking the intense air with him. His skin seemed a bit paler. His eyes more sunken in. His frazzled appearance made his stoic, unsmiling countenance all the more terrifying. It felt wrong seeing him without a smile. It felt even more dangerous than before. Once enough time had passed, I crept into the study and let out a sigh of relief upon seeing that none of the aberrations were around. The taste of iron and sugar mixed with the smell of blood and something burning. Even without my third eye, I could feel the ground lightly pulse under my feet. Very carefully, I navigated my way through the room, making sure to avoid any areas that pulsed harder than the rest. I didn't know what the pulses meant, but I had no desire to accidentally detonate something connected to a spell covering all of Pario. Oh yeah. I barely even breathed until I'd crossed the room. The grime-covered mirror reflected my poor visage back to me. My face looked gaunt. My eyes were slightly hazy with stress and fatigue. Stress had definitely shaved a few years off of my lifespan. Was that a bit of gray in my eyebrows? I could only hope to recover from what I'd endured here. My hand reached out and pressed against the mirror. Hello? Hello, is anyone there? My mind instinctively flexed bound muscles, and I winced when the chains burnt in response to my efforts. My nails bit into the grime, accidentally leaving a trace of my frustration. I tried to smooth it out while calling out again. The following silence made me bounce my foot anxiously. I fiddled with the chains around my wrists, wondering if I should keep trying. I leaned closer to do so when a light flickered in the mirror. You just hear a dial tone that says, "We're sorry, the living gods you're trying to connect to are very busy. Please call back again." Orange eyes opened into view, and those flames bore into me with apathetic confusion. Ugh. What are you doing here? Now of all times. There are easier ways to commit suicide. She certainly lacked a way with words. I wish that Hamos or Amare had been the one to answer. I'm not trying to die. He's out right now. We should not linger all the same. Why did you come here? I fought the urge to click my tongue. The records of her only spoke of her combat prowess, not her magical know-how. Oh yeah, Nakara is the one who punched a god in the face and killed it, I think. Then again, what did I have to lose? Do you know what this is? I dug out the scroll and held it up for her to see. Looks like the wrong option for an aura on an exam. No human should have this much godly She paused. This is your record, isn't it? Violo and Vivere say it is. Do you think it's fake? Let me see it closer. I stepped forward, and Akari angled her eyes to get a better look. No, that's probably real. It would make sense. Now I'm wondering what that little crap is hiding from me. You think Violo is hiding something? Not him. Them. Them? I wrapped my arms around myself once I went through the roster of possibilities. You don't trust Amare? I trust them to see our plans through, and not much more. Why did you think I was talking about Violo? I wondered if perhaps this was some kind of trick from him or Vivere. Why would they waste their time on that? You're too weak to stop them. The reminder of my weakness forced my head down. The prideful part of me hadn't wanted to admit that as a possibility. Don't get me wrong, depending on their attitude, they might have told you to mess with you a bit. They don't directly lie too often, though. Usually they lie by omission. When asked if they had any new insightful guests, they didn't deny your presence and explained their current experiments. Nakare let out a derisive snort. Of course, they left out the fact that you're not a slaver or someone they're allowed to take. They're hiding something, then. Probably. I bit my tongue and pondered why they'd tell me this information. Intimidation? Mental torture? It feels like too much of a coincidence. What does? They keep me around this long, and then have yet another reason to keep me longer? It feels off. They don't need a reason to keep you. They think they have all the time in the world with you. Don't forget, they really can just be childish. I mean, we're talking about a brat that sends poison bombs to someone he claims to care about because said person ignores him. Maybe they just wanted to see you squirm. That sounded wrong. Vivere seemed to like me. Enough worrying about why they told you about it. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Is that all you wanted to speak about? No, I have something else to ask you about. I'm very grateful for the fact that you're sending people to save me. Your gratitude is noted, but useless. Is that all? No, I wasn't finished. Nakare let out an impatient huff. I'm sorry to waste your time, ma'am. Once I'm free from Pario, what will happen next? You'll be taken to a location of your choice and let go. That's it? Is that not enough? I'm being pursued by the gods themselves to die. And? And I'm a human? Do you have a point? I realized my error in that moment. Nakare, the woman who killed a god, would not understand what I was implying. I need protection. Could the living gods provide that? Directly? No. I guess if you were to stay in my Sacrarium, I could keep you safe, but your life as a mercenary would be over. That idea hurt to even think about. I'd been a mercenary for so long. Could I really be anything else? I'd be trading one prison for another then. That'd be the most we could offer you. I don't have the energy to constantly ward off gods for one person. Hamos doesn't have that kind of energy either, and I don't think you want to be around Amare. Even though I've got this weird situation with my aura? Given how close Violo is to finishing his analysis, that does not have the weight you want it to. A new prison or abandonment, then. If you can't stand on your own 2 feet, you can never take your own strides in the world. I'm not asking for someone to be my feet. I'm asking for someone to help me keep my feet on my body. I've offered you help, a generous amount. Stop whining and come up with a proper plan if that isn't enough. No one will want to help someone who can't think of ways to help themselves. I felt my heart hammering in my chest in a rage. Was she serious? Didn't you ask for help when you fought justice? I did. I just had specific things I asked for, and I had workarounds in case Amare or Hamos said no. My temper truly threatened to flare then, but the mirror suddenly cut contact. Huh? Uh-oh. I didn't even get the chance to ask more about the devil. Uh-oh! The door to the study opened with a click. Violo walked in with his arms full of supplies.
Hello.
Oh, David, what a surprise. What in the world are you doing in my study? He sounded tiredly amused. I don't like how the music is sounding, though. I used this distraction to move a bit further away from the mirror. Looking for something to read. Oh, so you can read books written in Imperium Touchsight? Oh yeah, 'cause he's blind and he would need that. A wry smile crawled across his face. His teasing sing-song voice sent chills down my spine. Blind eyes strayed towards the mirror, and he let out a little chuckle. Did he know? My heart began to hammer in my chest. You must be quite the accomplished scholar then, but really, poking around a spell hotbed is not a wise move. Book smart over street smart, perhaps? He was letting it go? One wrong step in here and you'd explode, you know. I kinda guessed. Violo turned his attention back to the materials he'd brought with him. 2 human skulls, a rune-covered hide of scales, a few dozen vials of liquid, and a few thrumming wands of magic. He gestured for some of the tables to move. Once they'd done so, he began to arrange the items at his leisure. Listen here, none of you tables better snitch on me. I'm looking at you too, chair. You're a shifty-looking chair. The spell still isn't done? Of course not. It must be done slowly and carefully. Abrupt changes in the aura environment can cause my sunshine to seize. Aww.
Work is never done.
All larger spells must make microscopic adjustments over a few days, minimum. Since he's been worse lately, I must be even more careful. He spoke like the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. He's got to protect his pretty husband. This space is far enough away from my sunshine space to avoid affecting his health. Though that volatility makes it dangerous for you, on top of a few other dangerous items in here. Dangerous items? I glanced around expectantly. My hand instinctively fell towards my shoulder, and my frustration hissed when my fingers found air. Yes, dangerous items. Anything else like Vivere? Something the gods resent you for? Oh, their reason for hating me is nothing so base. It's always with me, due to how precious it is. Oh? My curiosity couldn't help itself. The creation always held the blame for the creator's downfall. Could it have been something else? Violo finished arranging the items before turning. He held up a hand, and I watched an orb of pure light form. This is what the gods hate so much. Let's look at it. Let's just mush our face into it. Instinctively, I reached within myself to gather energy to reach out. My frustrated hiss had Violo chuckling. Difficult to poke around without your third eye. I'm sure you can imagine. It's honestly better if you don't look at this too closely. I don't know how prolonged observation would affect the mortal mind. It's that dangerous? Extremely. It took me weeks to be able to accept this knowledge, and I'm a savant. Sometimes it's better to observe the marvelous from a safe distance. He rotated the bauble in his palm. There's still plenty to show you. The bauble exploded into vines. They poured down his hand before fizzling into bolts of lightning that curled around menacingly. In the next heartbeat, the lightning combined back into a dove that exploded into swirling embers. Want to guess what it is? He asked while the embers curled around his arm before turning into a snake. My mind practically came to a standstill while I processed what I was looking at. I didn't have my third eye to confirm it, but that looked far beyond him calling on the power of elementals. He didn't say a single thing during the transformations. His hands remained still. He seemed relaxed instead of intensely focused. I yearned for my third eye to really see what was going on. I don't know. Truly, I didn't. There's no explanation that made sense.
Come now, it's pretty obvious.
Is it energy?
Close. This is near limitless potential, meaning it can be raw energy if I need it.
Potential?
It's what it sounds like. All that there could be in one tiny little fragment. I use it for a variety of things, the big one being energy, of course. I never have to worry about mana.
This doesn't take mana to make?
He shook his head. Nope. Once one attains this knowledge, it's as easy to make as thinking it up.
He held his palms out, and more baubles began to form. They formed at such a fast rate that a small waterfall fell down the sides of his hands and arms. They faded away into nothing I could see. I swallowed around the lump forming in my throat. Energy had no expense. I just hoped that he was exaggerating or lying. But no, this seemed genuine. You said near limitless. That means there are limitations?
Yes, the big one is that things need a base.
A base?
For example,
I watched as a cat formed in his arms. The fur shifted from straight blonde to curly red. The eyes went from big to small, and from brown to gold. The fur color comes from one cat, the texture another, the eye shape another, and so on. Yet they all come together to form a new cat. Well, minus a personality and mind. Violo patted the docile cat.
This thing will seek out necessities, but it doesn't have a mind of its own. I can't copy minds, sadly. That's something far too nebulous. Still, it's good for making replacement parts or shells to house souls.
The cat faded away into flower petals. He held up his thumb and middle finger, pinched together. A small bauble of light formed between them before floating forward.
With some limitations, I can do things like replace lost limbs, change sex organs, or repair bodies ravaged by disease. Though I cannot fix something that does not exist or is always meant to happen.
Something that does not exist or is always meant to happen? Is there an echo in here?
If someone only has 9 fingers, I cannot make them a 10th. Their body will reject it.
He gestured to his own eyes.
Oh. I also cannot remove hereditary diseases like my own. No matter what, my eyes are destined to degenerate painfully into near total blindness.
Aww.
But if someone lost an organ to a non-hereditary disease, I could replace it. If they were blinded by a sword, I could restore their sight.
He snapped his fingers. I watched it turn into an eyeball and fall to the ground.
All it takes is a bit of research and some thought. The ability to freely make just about anything is what drives those old gods crazy.
The eye faded into a small bauble of light again.
It's a delight to have, truly.
I can see why the gods would find it so intimidating. Someone else being able to make something like this like they can, it must be a terrifying thought.
Even more so, only a certain type of god can make potential. And they're not the ones puppeting the world right now. Though that also makes me useful to the gods. It's actually why they've imprisoned me. Why turn away a possible endless manipulatable resource producer? His bone-chilling grin told me the rest of the story before he did. Of course, they never would have imagined the little beast they caught would be so vicious. Now they stay far away from me. I am loath to admit I do make the resource they need all the same.
Really? Why?
For the world. It's a bit complicated, so never mind it.
He held up the bauble, reminding me of a jewelsmith looking at a stone. I want a shiny, big old ball of energy.
What's really interesting with you is the reaction possibility has had to you.
Reaction?
I tested it out on samples you provided me. The first reaction burnt a hole through one of my tables.
That doesn't sound promising. Maybe my void and potential are natural enemies? Violo shook his head.
The fact you're alive at all means you have to have come from potential. I think He paused and shook his head with a self-mocking smile. What I think about that is irrelevant. Still, you should be able to be copied. The tip of my tongue burnt between my teeth. I kept biting it down hard. What did he think? Why was it something he felt the need to obscure? I swallowed the howling questions down before asking a safer one. Could it be because the samples were technically dead? I suppose. Living tissue can cause different reactions in certain spell chains. Given how volatile the reaction was, you can imagine why I wasn't eager to throw this at my only living test subject.
I appreciate that.
Whoops, I blew her up. I guess we missed that one chance. As you should. I am a generous being.
What if we minimize the danger space? Perhaps maybe against a fingertip. Would that be helpful?
Violo raised a brow. It would. But are you really okay with putting your body on the line like that?
I'd rather do it now than later. That way we don't have to do anything risky in a rush.
I watched him tap his foot while he thought. He shifted back and forth on his heels before finally holding the bauble of light out to me. Very well. Move quickly, and only lightly tap it. His other hand came to hover nearby. The smell of burning roses increased, and I swore the gold scars on his chest rippled with light briefly. The serious air in the room made me very carefully reach out and brace myself. I tapped the light with my index finger and pulled back quickly. Pain fractured through my finger before I even pulled it back. Violo's eyes widened. I felt magic stir at the back of my mind. My legs buckled while the man in front of me pushed my consciousness out of my body gently. The disorientation of watching my own body outside of it made me slightly nauseated. I appreciated not dealing with the pain. A fragment of the bauble clung to my hissing flesh. It melted a canyon of dark wind into my finger pad. Ow! Small canyons began to tear into my finger. Before it could travel too far, a blade of thick blood severed the finger and grasped my hand. I watched in awe as a new finger reconstructed itself within seconds. The old one hissed and popped on the ground until it exploded with a wet thud into a small orb of sickly green light. Ugh, good thing that wasn't my whole hand. Violo's magic kept a steady grip on my consciousness and pulled me back in. My finger felt numb and achy, but it was tolerable. Aww. Duvid, can you hear me? I brought you back, right?
You did. Thank you for the emergency projection. I'd rather not black out.
I'm just glad I didn't accidentally toss you out too far. Is your finger the right color? Can you move it? I'm not sure if your body will accept a total replica. It's one thing to regrow teeth. It's another to regrow nerves.
It aches a bit.
I flexed the offending finger. It felt stiff when I curled my hand into a fist.
It looks all right, though.
Good. He pointed his palm downwards. I watched the light flutter and move to hover over it. Did it work?
Truly an intriguing situation.
Ooh. In more ways than you can imagine. This is amazing. He curled his hand over the light and shook his head. But that'll be research for another time. I have other tasks to attend to, and you need to recover from the projection and the replication. He helped me stand up. All things considered, I didn't weave on my feet. Benefits of a merc's pain tolerance,
Yeah, I do feel like I lost a fight in a bar, though.
Go, rest. Violo paused to grab my hand in his. He squeezed it once. I appreciate the assistance, Duvid. This will do wonders for my research.
He let me go and put a hand at the small of my back to escort me out.
Hopefully he doesn't turn to you with a smile and go, "Oh, by the way, don't touch my mirror anymore." If you want to remind me later, I could perhaps reward you. For now, I am a very busy man.
Right. Hopefully too busy to worry about checking the mirror. My worries gave me the energy I needed to make it back to my room. Once in my room, I stared down at my new hand, poking and prodding the small miracle. I resolved to not gamble my life like that again, if I could avoid it. The midday meal arrived on time, carried in by a small plant creature. Other people might coo at the sight of its tiny body and head of leaves, but I recognized the widow's wish granter easily enough. Widow's wish granter? I ate my food cautiously while mulling over what had happened in the library. I'd been lucky that Violo didn't seem to notice the mirror had been used. Either Amare's spell was longer lasting than I thought, or he was that tired. Not getting the chance to speak with Amare or Hamos worried me deeply. Their perspectives might have been more useful. The conversation I'd had hardly felt worth the risk I'd taken. My stiff appendages felt better at least. Violo having a better understanding of my void was a gamble I still felt uncertain about. On one hand, I was glad to have it over. On the other, I wondered if I'd tightened the noose around my neck. One might think I could only pray, but my situation removed even that option for me. I could only hope that things would continue to go well. Preparing for the worst never failed me before, so I gathered my supplies and decided to venture back out again. The library was off limits, and I'd long since reached the maximum range of the boundary Violo established. That left only one place to explore, that odd secret door at the fountain. Oh yeah. None of the aberrations bothered me. Their fervor almost knocked me over a few times, but those encounters ended with a gurgling hiss in my direction and nothing more. I had to move around them to avoid drawing too much attention. In contrast to the dark halls of the castle, the garden felt oddly lethargic. Vivere's declining health showed in the slightly dreary garden. Aww! What used to be unnaturally teeming with life now barely stretched out under the red sky. He had to be in a bad state. With the garden's master nowhere to be seen, I felt confident in going to the fountain. I grasped the chains that bound my wrists and went to work. Fountain doors weren't something new. I had had to slip through one to kill people, steal things, save people, and more. The hardest part with magical ones was figuring out how to break the lock in a way that didn't activate the backup locks and traps. I had no desire to find out how vicious these two could be to thieves. Luckily, I still had my sense of smell. Long-term magic-like magic blocks always had a smell, and most people made it sour as a thief did things wrong. After all, it was hard to break open a lock when you were nearly vomiting from a foul odor. I monitored the smell with steady breaths, moving away any time the smell of blood began to overtake the smell of citrus. Excitement made my hand shake while I worked on the last few segments. I'd have answers soon. I'd have made some kind of progress. In my growing anticipation, I was delayed in noticing the smell fade away, falling into a deep, dark stare well after the hidden door snapped up and made me yell. Ooh. Strong arms caught me with ease.
Hello.
Ah! I'm sorry! This is probably his room or something. This is where he keeps all his plushies. I flailed a bit in Vivere's grasp before relaxing into his grip. Is this where you hit me with a cheesy one-liner about falling for me? His light teasing helped me collect my breathing. He waited patiently for me to respond, not letting me down at all. No. Maybe. What a pity. It would be a good time for it.
I imagine Violo would think differently.
Eh? In general, Violo lets me have anything I ask for, so I'm quite certain he wouldn't mind.
Vivere then sat me down gently on the steps, making sure I was standing up straight before releasing me.
Still, my dear, please don't go messing around with our magic. It took us ages to force this door open. You almost made it collapse inwards again.
He gestured to the walls. I saw a thin membrane of gold extending out from damage to the black thorny vines that crawled along the walls. Vivere burnt the membrane away with a sigh.
Be glad you're adorable, otherwise I might have had to scar you for it.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize there was another kind of magic here.
You can't have known. It's a pretty well-kept secret among us. Be careful in the future.
How cute.
He pinched my cheek playfully.
That curious mind of yours is going to get you in trouble, cutie.
I felt my mouth open and close a few times in fluster.
What's down here might not be the best for your health, quite literally. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't mind showing you, but you are a unique case.
His pulling turned into gentle stroking.
Do you want to see what's down here?
I do.
Even though it might hurt you?
Yes. I'm a brave boy. It could be a way out. It could be something I could use. There was no reason to back away just because of a mite.
Very well.
Vivere tugged me down to the same step as him. He then folded my hand into the crook of his elbow before beginning to walk.
Let me know if you begin to feel poorly, all right? I'll show you what's down here.
I will. Thank you. We descended down into the darkness. Small flowers of light bloomed along the walls as we walked, obviously more for me than for him.
What?
I noticed the incline is not as sharp as the winding halls to the dungeon. Does this path intersect with the dungeon?
No. The dungeon, for Violo's well-being, is positioned to maintain a minimum of 1 mile distance from any area he could be.
No wonder getting down there felt like a small eternity last time.
We will be further down and away.
Where are we going?
To the most important place in any Sacrarium, the heart chamber.
Oh! My brows furrowed at his word choice. He slipped into what had to be his native tongue, but the word was similar enough to modern cress. The word he used for heart wasn't the one commonly used for the physical item, nor the alternative for the soul. It was the one that rested in the middle. He also used the worst word for chamber, one more akin to cage. A soulful heart cage?
You actually speak Cress?
Not fluently. I've picked up a lot since the tourmaline ring originates from the country that came before it.
Do not remind Violo of that. He is eternally vexed that he failed in slaughtering the ring. To answer the implied question, a heart chamber is functionally the nail in the leash. The hearts, and by extension the magical cores, of all the living gods have been removed and bound to a bit of land. One's main body can only extend so far from its core before it begins to crack and dwindle. Thus, this binding is what makes the Sacrarium a prison. For Hamos and Nakare, their heart chambers also serve as a way to cripple them. Normally, these are sealed to keep us away from them.
Vivere gestures up to the thorny vines.
Violo and Amare both are strong enough to force the doors open to keep access to all of their power. Had you broken Violo's work, both doors would have shut. It takes weeks to reopen them. Even with me on this side to help, you probably would have starved to death.
Ugh. I winced at the revelation, grateful I hadn't messed things up that badly.
Though your curious mind wasn't wrong about it technically being an exit. The only exit from the castle that doesn't have a lethal drop is through the heart chamber. Vivere looked down at me and pursed his lips. Assuming you survive the journey, we are about to be surrounded by Violo's magic. I'm down here because that will make me feel better. It will probably make you feel worse.
An empty cup walking into a rushing river definitely didn't sound like a good idea. Then again, that was all conjecture. I might not have any reaction at all.
Normally it would be dangerous to let you walk around down here. However, it's safe to let you down here right now. Briefly.
Dangerous? For Violo?
Yes.
Sensing his mood beginning to shift, I decided to change the subject. You said I'd start feeling magic, but I'm not feeling bad yet.
You won't begin to notice it until you begin to crack. That's why we should walk with some haste. We'll only have a short time frame to get you out if you begin to react extremely poorly.
I fell silent at that and matched his increased pace. The sound of water rushing by caught me off guard. The further down we went, the louder the sound became, until a small, gentle waterfall rushed past my feet on the steps. I carefully navigated the dangerous terrain. Vivere merely strode on with practiced ease. As we went further, small baubles of light began to pass by us. The occasional one turned to a few, then a few dozen. Then we were wading in them. Vivere reached down and picked some up while we walked. I saw his hair curl with power while we walked and used magic. I couldn't figure out what drove him to pick one up over another. I scratched my brain for what these could be. The smell of flowers was overwhelming, indicating it was a long-term magic, probably Vivere's. It didn't quite match the smell of Violo's magic. The questions I had brewing died in my mouth when the first thrum ran up my legs. The faint echoes came at a constant pace. What I recognized as a heartbeat almost made me lose my footing more than a few times. It only grew in intensity as we walked. The vibrations reached their peak when we entered a large room. A waterfall poured down from the ceiling, slamming hard into the otherwise still pool of water. A light glimmered deep in those waters, barely seen from the top. Only the slight gold tinge separated its glow from the silvery ones that surrounded it. Only one observation managed to fall from my lips. There's only one.
Yes, I still have mine.
He answered the question so flippantly. Then why are you still here?
Because wherever Violo is, I shall be. Beyond the fact the gods would smite me the moment I was away from him, I don't ever want to leave his side. I'm certain they meant to do this to drive a wedge between him and me. They're probably quite surprised I linger, even now.
The danger of the man beside me clicked in my head. He could leave this island, even though he admitted to the danger it would pose him. I knew in my bones he would do it if he felt the need to. No, he would not leave his husband. Like, if he wanted to chase me down. Oh. Well, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Watch your footing. These orbs are a pain to replace. You almost crushed one.
Vivere picked up the orb I'd apparently almost destroyed. The ridiculousness of him fussing over an inanimate object while I dealt with a horrifying reality made me almost laugh. The shock helped pull me and recenter my focus. What are these orbs?
You're probably familiar with them, albeit not in this form. Touch one.
His tone of voice told me that he wouldn't explain things further. Hesitantly, I reached down and brushed my fingers against one of the orbs. A bloom of color crawled across my right eye, startling me. A little boy, about 7, played with a small toy in a slightly shabby hut. Small scars covered his arms and face, but he cheerfully played. His smile only grew when he seemed to notice me. I couldn't hear him with my lack of contact, but I saw what he mouthed. "Mama." I drew my hand back with a startled noise. A distant eye? Distant eyes? I stood in a sea of magical items that would cost thousands, no millions, no billions of gold for a mere mortal to replicate. These devices were popular with the extremely rich, and I'd used one on more than one occasion to track down and rescue kidnapped heirs.
Is that what mercenaries call them now? We always called them guardian seraphs back in the day. The hardest part about these things is keeping them empowered, so we store them here. Of course, we can access them at any point. If a flower needs us, we will be there. Someone must protect the innocent from the cruel world we live in.
Why? The question left me before I could stop it. These two already seemed extraordinarily busy. How could they have the time to spare on a bunch of humans? Did they have some greater plan?
Because someone has to. Some people might be able to ignore the cries of the needy. We are not.
He might as well have been talking about his preferences in tea. He spun those heavy words around like they weighed nothing. Isn't that exhausting?
Yes.
It's nothing we can't handle.
Do you get something out of it? Vivere gave me a look that questioned my intelligence.
There is very little any of our flowers really have to offer to beings such as us. Beyond their happiness, nothing really.
He shrugged a shoulder with a nonchalant smile. Something inside me twisted then.
Because in this cruel world someone must be kind.
My boots had walked across almost every island on the Chain Isles. On that journey, I'd been the witness to many, many people. Cruelty remained the most common characteristic I'd encountered. People spoke often of human kindness being our greatest strength. I felt that to be bullcrap. Looking at a creature made in the image of what humans should be only made me feel that way more. As vicious as I knew Vivere could be if pressed, it would have been impossible to deny the sincerity of the emotions on his face. It's gotta be a lot of work. Vivere's face briefly flickered between surprise and confusion. Then he smiled sweetly at me.
Of course.
Oh, it is. The numbers only seem to grow. As any legend does, ours grows and grows. Some won't call to us for fear of the gods. Others come from places that see us as monsters. For those who do call us, though, well, the world is now in their hands in a way. I imagine we'll only get busier as time goes on.
Won't it hurt? That boy, the one I saw, he called you Mama. I imagine others of your flowers call you the same. That implies a deep connection. Aww. It's going to hurt when they die, isn't it?
Yes. The obvious major downside to this endeavor, it does hurt when they pass.
He gestures a hand up, and my eyes followed. I saw faint wisps of light making a faded starry sky in the shadows of the ceiling.
But they get to rest in peace, free from gods and devils and angels. Luckily, we have forever to mourn and love anew.
That's quite the state to subject yourselves to.
Love is sacrifice at times.
I wouldn't know.
What a shame.
Vivere opened his mouth to speak again, but he stopped and looked me up and down. Uh-oh.
You're beginning to squint.
Am I? I reached a hand up to my face, realizing I did find the lights almost too bright now. A small pain thrummed behind my eyes. Vivere moved faster than I did, scooping me up into his arms. I didn't flail and let him cradle me to avoid messing with his balance. Then again, who knows if a mere human could shift his weight enough to throw him off balance in the first place. Yeah, he's very big. He moved through the water and up the stairs with the grace of familiarity. He had us out of the space in record time. Should I be concerned? I feel fine. Minus a few aches here and there,
I truly felt all right. Since I noticed early, no. Humans have obvious tells when they begin to absorb too much magic. Yours were still small, so beyond a light headache, you should be fine.
That's a relief. How was that room causing me to absorb so much magic, though? Is it the spells?
Not just that. The air in there is magic. The water is magic. You were surrounded by it. It's no surprise your body sought to devour it. It's why I didn't want to bring you in there. For your own records, though, you might be able to make it to the beach, but you'd probably faint upon reaching it.
Oh yeah, 'cause I'd have to go through there. Ah, meld.
He pouted. Are we really that terrible?
I just want to go home.
Do you even have one?
I bit my lip at that. He wasn't wrong. Vivere settled me down once we reached the garden. He fussed over me to no avail, saying it was like reaching into a pit. All he could go off of was my vitals, which seemed to be steadying.
Well, a disaster has been avoided. Good.
He patted himself on the chest.
Now I imagine you are quite bored. Shall I have some tea brought our way? Perhaps we could discuss some ways to make your stay here more pleasant.
Oh no! He paused to cough, but the sound caught my attention. It sounded worse. The black bile that seeped between his fingers only confirmed that. His eyes widened with unhidden panic. Aww.
He sounds like me when I got seasonal allergies.
He stumbled, muscles seizing. I went to his side and helped him stay upright. He accepted my aid without complaint. Vivere, what's wrong?
I don't know. The spells should be working.
He looks so scared.
If you die, if I'm playing this demo and you die, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry, Vivere.
Why would an immortal being look scared? A further coughing fit, and his skin feeling like coal under my hand drove the question from my mind. We should go to Violo. I wrapped an arm around his waist and tossed an arm of his over my shoulders.
No.
He dug his heels in, and I had to correct my own footwork to avoid toppling over.
He is busy. Our room. I need our room.
Do you have medicine there? He nodded weakly. Helping him move felt like hefting heavy crates wrapped in delicate porcelain. I flinched when I heard his skin let out an almost stone-like crack under my hand. Ugh. Blood trickled out onto the hand that I thought was carefully holding his forearm.
Ignore it. My skin has been bad today. I have a clay for that.
I need to stop the bleeding.
My blood circulation is poor today, so there isn't much to stop. Just keep walking.
Today, he said, like it was random. Reluctantly, I ignored my desire to tend to his arm to help him through the halls. Aberrations fled at the sight of him, making me wonder just what he did to them to inspire such a reaction. At a dark door, he tugged himself from me. Let me help you.
No. Viola will notice if you enter here. Go back to your room. Thank you for helping me get here.
Vivere opened the door and entered the pitch-black room. I saw that the areas my fingertips had gripped had small fractures in the skin. He closed the door before I could say another word. I knocked once, but he didn't answer. Meld! I paced the halls for a while, wondering what to do. In the end, Vivere asked me not to tell Violo, and it would be rude of me to divulge his business. No matter how I argued with myself, that decision found itself tossed back and forth in my mind during my walk back to my room. Sleep didn't come easily for different reasons. The magic of the place increased, and I could feel it hammering against my skull. Even as some plants seemed to absorb the energy in the room, my body burned with the pressure. I ended up sleeping on the ground to cool down.
But even then, if my discomfort didn't wake me, a nightmare did. The true test seemed to be what would end first, Violo's spell work, or my life. Luckily or unluckily, I survived until the next day. My body felt like heck the next morning. My bones grinded beneath muscles tense with pain, and my ability to think barely treaded the waters of my pounding skull. No food had come to me. I was somewhat grateful, since my stomach roiled even with the normal smells of the room. I could feel my own heartbeat occasionally buckle under the strain. Between spasms, I slowly hauled myself up and stumbled to the door. It opened into air that made my skin burn with irritation. My gasp of this contaminated air had me coughing so hard I had to cling to the wall. Just waving my hand in the direction I knew Violo to be in made sharp blades of pain cut between my fingers. I needed to get away, and fast. My feet began hauling me towards safety before my mind could catch up. The garden would be the furthest point away I could achieve. I dug my fingers into the wall so hard that they ached, but such small pains were nothing compared to my skin feeling too small for my body. I slightly improved when I stumbled into the garden. The muggy outside air rested heavily on my dry tongue, but I took deep breaths anyway. In contrast to the magic in the halls, there seemed to be almost none out here now. All of the plants stood eerily silent. The soil almost seemed a bit dry under my shaky footsteps. Signs of rot and decay ate at the edges of some of the plants. Oh no! Some part of me worried for Vivere. I pondered trying to crawl my way to the pair's room, but my body felt too weak for that. I needed to feel better before I could imagine going to tend to someone else. Thus, I hauled myself through the garden. My years of training kept me from falling face first, but it was hard. To my surprise, I found Vivere in the garden. His head rested on folded forearms, and I could see the tension running through his body. Oh no! Oh. The bone and clay cat at his side let out soft meows of distress when a particularly violent coughing fit shook his whole body.
Vivere, are you okay?
I moved forward with a bit more energy now. Sympathy coiled in my chest when he couldn't answer me.
If you die, Vivere, if something bad happens to you, I'm going to cry. I am going to cry. I am going to cry on camera.
Ha! Foreshadowing.
Slowly, his coughing calmed down. He turned to look up at me with a weary smile.
Ah, hello.
I feel like crap, obviously, but your presence makes it a bit better. I did my best to ignore the small bits of happiness growing in me.
I don't think anyone likes being alone and sick. I'm surprised Violo isn't with you.
As far as my beloved knows, I'm curled up in bed.
Why aren't you doing just that?
The room began to feel too suffocating. I needed some fresh air. I nodded in understanding. The motion almost sent me to my knees. Vivere jerked up, startling his feline companion. It paced in circles on the table, while Vivere slowly lowered himself back into his seat when he couldn't maintain his balance.
Aw.
Are you okay?
Yes, just a bit dizzy. All the magic in the air is unpleasant, to say the least.
I can imagine. Here, have a seat. I accepted the offer and relaxed into the chair.
Misery loves company, right?
She certainly does.
I tilted my head. Is there a god of misery?
Devil, yes. God, technically no.
Interesting. Oh.
Vivere paused to let out another round of agonized coughing. Sorry, I always get worse towards the end. My buddy is not happy Violo's pulled his power back.
I'm sorry. What?
Vivere laughed at me a little bit.
Vivere, look, dude, I am genuinely worried about you.
No need for such a firm tone. I'll explain. He's not abusing me or anything. since I know that's where your mind might jump to. When I was created, I was made in the image of man. I was made to have normal levels of magic comprehension and energy. Violo was once similar in capacity, albeit always rapidly growing. By now, his power surpasses most. Magical know-how is one thing, it's just mental. Growing more energy causes a physical burden on the body.
Oh yeah.
Thus, to allow for this rapid growth without the necessary time to adapt, he spreads his magic outside of him to reduce the burden. Of course, I get to enjoy having half the powers of a near god, so I'm not complaining. He just needs to take it back when working big spells like this. Usually, I divide the energy further myself, but all pieces of his power have been recalled at this point.
Vivere shrugged.
Thus my current condition. I don't have the energy to maintain the garden right now.
My mind felt like someone had poured honey over every inch of it. Slowly, the pieces clinked into place in the growing silence. He was only at half strength before? My question came out shaky.
Oh no, that wasn't even half of his power.
Oh shoot, Violo's terrifying. Violo's not just scary, he's terrifying.
Do you think an immortal lucidity with the favor of the dream trader would be so weak?
A sharp cough cut off his laughter. Favor of the traitorous god? It was well known that the god of dreams betrayed the world. May you have a dreamless sleep was a blessing found in most languages.
Oh, so now we gotta be worried when we fall asleep too.
Oh.
Yes, Violo is a lucidity, a lucid dreamer to begin with. It means he has a higher capacity for magical comprehension, and he can commune with dream easily.
I used to lucid dream. Lucid dreaming is fun.
That communion is how he's able to figure a lot of things out, like you. Violo, at the time you met him and most interacted with him, held about 10% of his power. Honestly, it might have been less. Half to me, 15% to my father, 5% to the island. The remaining 20 is spread out across our flowers in varying numbers.
Vivere's grin grew one part wicked and one part proud.
Truly, my beloved lives up to his title of monster, doesn't he?
Oh, they are so cute together. All of the times I'd see Violo twist and bend magic like it was water flooded through me. He did all of that with a mere fraction of his true capabilities? Truly, I began to understand the hesitance of the other living gods in angering him.
How amusing. Don't let Violo hear you thought he was so weak. It might make him cranky.
The powerful energy over the castle right now, that's him? I thought it was the spells. Vivere nodded. Calling Violo a human anymore felt like a grave understatement of his capabilities. Vivere, by comparison, felt, weak, clever, or cherished. He loves his husband so very much. A familiar wave of want courses through me. I'm envious.
What?
Of the power? Well, most people would be. Violo is the type to inspire feelings of inadequacy.
Not him. You. I wish I had someone who loved me as much as Violo loves you. His face flickered between being shocked and being pleased. In the end, he settled somewhere near the middle of those two emotions.
Yes, Violo does take very good care of me. Even without your particular background, anyone could be envious of our relationship. Though I imagine it strikes a sore spot for you in particular.
I nodded.
Poor thing. The gods really did go all out of their way to make you miserable.
Some part of me wonders if they wanted to make me sad enough to end my own life.
Probably. That certainly sounds like a tactic they'd use.
They've got to be ticked off I'm still around then.
Oh, certainly. It's a thing to revel in, you know. Surviving when everyone around you wants you dead. You've done good. Maybe not perfect, but good. It shows how strong you are that you've kept going.
I don't know if I'd call it strength as much as spiteful. Live out of spite.
What's the difference? Many of the things my love and I do are out of spite.
We shared a mutual chuckle. Oh, somebody get this man some Robitussin! The tender moment broke under the sound of Vivere coughing again. To my concern, because I had a friend who had a really bad cough for going on months to a year, and their whole life was plagued with just a cough that sounded like that. I think they're still doing it. And I just feel so bad because I know their chest probably hurts, their head probably hurts. Whatever sickness that caused the cough is gone, but the cough is still there, and you're just stuck with it for probably months. Not to mention that this guy's bones are literally made of glass. To my concern, the cough seemed to stretch on and on. It lasted long enough that I stood up to be by his side. I didn't know how to help him, so I felt more than useless. His state distracted me so much I didn't even notice the large finger approaching until it tapped against his back harshly. The tap forced a wheeze, and a second heavy blow had him coughing out some crystallized items before breathing more steadily.
Sorry, Espoir. Thank you, Father.
Father? Despite getting hit hard enough, I worried his ribs would crack. He actually seemed better. Are you okay? What happened? What do you mean, Father? Did we mention this before?
Some of the inner portions of my lungs crystallized.
Oh! That's what happened? Just the inside of your lungs crystallized? If you die, Vivere, don't you dare die.
When that happens, I have to be hit hard enough to break up the chunks and cough them out.
Doesn't that hurt your throat? I carefully lifted up his head, distressed to find blood intermixed with the black liquid I'd gotten used to seeing him cough up.
A bit. I'll be fine.
He gently rested his hand on top of mine.
Thank you for your concern, but it would be better if you left. Father is going to take me down to the heart chamber. You can't go down there.
I can take it.
No, you can't.
He tapped the tip of my nose. Don't you boop me.
Your room, while uncomfortable, is safe for you to stay in. Violo has placed spells to prevent your death. Go and rest. I will do the same.
I hesitated long enough that the large hand reached over and pinched the back of my collar between its thumb and index finger. Hey! Like an unruly cat, I was pulled away and deposited away from Vivere. I looked back in time, only to see a long arm and big shoulder shrink down in size. Oh, the big hand thing that we saw near the beginning. Oh, I thought that was just a giant golem. That's his dad. Not wanting to agitate Vivere's father further, I returned to my room. The morning had been nothing more than a teaser of what was to come. It felt like every inch of my body was an overstuffed powder keg waiting to blow up. I couldn't eat lunch, and I could barely keep water down. The air in the room changed rapidly, alternating between sweet, sour, and spicy of all things. Why is the air spicy? All I could do was curl up into a ball, waiting for whichever would end first, the spells or my life. Right as I thought my body would reach its threshold, all of the overwhelming magic disappeared. The suddenness of the weight lifting off of me had me coughing and wheezing. I still felt lethargic and pained, but I could feel my muscles slowly untensing. Vivere hadn't lied. This room had protected me. Still, I'd been trapped in this darn thing for hours, and my feet yearned to go walking. I had things to check, too. I do. The castle's buzz of frantic energy had sharply declined down to its usual tedium. A few creatures here and there were in a hurry,
but most were back to their normal routine. During my investigations, I was pleased to find the ring of black flowers was gone. That meant I could look for another route out, a route that didn't include going through their heart chamber. Now that the spells were done, I had hoped that Violo wouldn't be haunting his library. To my chagrin, he stood in the center of the room, toiling away at more spells. He looked even more haggard than usual. I swore he looked thinner, his hair wilder. He had about 20 spell circuits swirling around him in a multitude of languages. I could barely have 2 or 3 circuits running if I pushed myself. Meanwhile, he began to draw up the 21st one he needed. Okay, I know you have, all the magic in the world, but slow down. These two don't know how to take care of themselves and push themselves way too far. His hands moved slowly, and I only noticed the problem when one of his hands lazily lingered near a few letters. He'd placed a false cognate next to a keystone component in one of his circuits. What does this mean? Why is the music bumpin'? That false cognate burned and festered, spilling the incorrect energy out into other nearby circuits. His back was turned to the circuits that were beginning to overheat with energy. They were going to explode if something didn't happen. My, I have the urge that I should save my game right now. Do nothing. Try to warn him. I moved to try and save him. As much as I would want to do that, I think that would end up in me getting blasted, so maybe just warn him from a safe distance. He was going to really injure himself and possibly bring the whole room down. I stepped into the room a bit and yelled out, "Violo!" He gave me no response. "Air elementals in this room, listen to me. He's going to die. Violo, turn around!" Even with my connection to magic being severed, I could only hope that the elementals were cognizant enough to recognize the urgency in my voice. Violo didn't turn to look at me.
Hello.
I have no idea why you're bothering. There's no time!
What?
That caught his attention.
Huh?
He looked at the disaster brewing behind him. Oh, he didn't know? Ah. He held up a hand and pushed me back into the hall with dark shadows. A wall of black blocked the door as an ear-shattering shriek surged out of the haywire spellwork. The whole area shook, sending bits of the ceiling tumbling down onto me. I held my arms up to protect my head in case his spell failed. Once the shaking stopped, the black wall melted into nothing. Plumes of white dust and smoke spilled out into the hallway. What are you even doing, dude? I stood up and brushed myself off before entering the library. Violo? I expected to hear him reply, but he didn't. Violo! If you die, if I play this game and you die, I will cry. If anything happens to the two of you boys, I will cry. Pushing past the smoke screen, I saw the room repairing itself in a way very reminiscent of a human body. Ugh. Energy tendrils extended between segments of a table, pulling it back together like broken bone. Blood-like pools of energy filled gaps and holes in the floor and wall, scabbing over much like a cut wound. Tools, books, and jars slowly helped each other move around to find the missing pieces of themselves. Aw, that's kinda cute. At the center of all this recovery rested a body that looked pretty good for being less than 2 feet away from an explosion. Minus the fact a stump oozing black blood rested where the head should be. Violo? I went to crouch down by the body, checking for a pulse. He's fine. He's fine. Vivere's cute husband did not just die in an explosion. He's fine. He has all the magic in the world. He's fine. Instead of growing stronger with his recovery, it faded to nothing. His skin became cold, and my attempts to jostle his arm revealed his body to be stiffening quickly. What? I shook him harder. No response.
He had already shown an aptitude for rapid healing and recovery. It was harder to heal other people compared to healing yourself. He should be sitting up and talking to me. Merde! Sadly curses in French. Gosh dang it, Violo! Don't you do that to me, I was gonna cry! I stood up to get Vivere, only to find Violo sighing in the doorway.
The head is destroyed.
I blinked, dumbly.
Confirm it for me. The head is destroyed.
Yes?
I looked back and forth. There should be no way for two Violos to exist at once. Well, I mean, he did just make a cat out of thin air, so maybe he just made a doppelganger of himself, which is really smart, actually. Man, it's so inconvenient to reconstruct brain matter. He brushed past me and picked the body up, twirling it around. How vexing. Still, it's polite of you to try and warn an immortal about their impending death.
How?
Well, you yelled loud enough, the elementals.
No games, you know what I'm asking. Stop! Stop making fun of me. I was worried.
He paused and gave me a sly smirk before dropping the body to the ground. Do you remember how I said I can't perceive time?
I nodded.
That is true, with one crippling exception. You see, living gods still have human minds, and human minds crack under the weight of eternity. True immortality means that you're removed from time's perception. Has this conversation lasted seconds? Minutes? It could be hours for all I know. The issue is when humans get too close. Once a human is within close enough proximity, the time's awareness spreads into the living god, like a stain. It forces time to pass again, which is very bad for us. Even small seconds build up into a disaster. We're all looking for solutions. Some are asinine, like what that adle-minded snow crow has thought up.
Oh yeah, Hamos kind of hinted at all this sort of thing in the game Sacrarium Jealous. Jealous. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Violo snorted with a dark expression on his face. Carving out his memories to make physical space just to be able to keep his human pet around is so immature and uncreative. And he calls me a brute. The nerve. Despite that, I can't let that little idiot ruin himself like that. This is my solution, and thanks to you, I know it works. It'll take some time to implement, but when I'm done, we will be able to walk among humans with no fear while our physical bodies mediate separately. So, while I understand seeing my corpse may be a bit upsetting just by the inherently traumatizing nature of finding a corpse, don't worry. This is only a mild, if painful head injuries hurt the worst, inconvenience.
How many of these do you have?
That one is an imperfect copy. Dozens of them exist. They're convenient for simpler tasks.
Simple tasks? Yours bicycle spinning 20 spells when I can barely do 2.
This one is perfect, which was why it was off doing more important things.
You can control more than one?
How could someone of my power do any less? Anyways, you're in my way. I have things to do. If you wish to talk, it'll need to be later. He made a shooing gesture.
All right. I fought the urge to remind him most people would say thank you.
He already seemed to forget all about me by the time I was halfway to the door. I left with my head on a swivel, wondering if I'd spot any more Violos sauntering around the place. I rubbed my hands together to ward off my new chills. Going to the mirror would be impossible, while Violo still had work to do. I needed to wait until I saw him elsewhere. Then again, even if I did see him elsewhere, there was no guarantee another one of his replicas wasn't in the library. I
I just needed to be more thorough then. I wondered if the other living gods knew of this maintenance time. If they did, I wondered even more why they wouldn't have saved me during it. Violo had been distracted. Vivere had been painfully weak. It would have been a simple operation. Dark thoughts haunted me, even as I explored the new areas of the castle. I couldn't help but wonder whether those other beings really had my best intentions at heart. In the days to come, my body recovered. The fatigue lessened, and I no longer felt pain walking the halls. I could sense that the spells had worked. The humidity had decreased. The air tasted better. The colors in the castle appeared more vibrant, and the apparitions seemed calmer. Despite all of that, an unshakable tension lingered in the air. Contrary to my concerns about Violo renewing his research on me with a vengeance, I hadn't even seen the man. All of my meals were eaten alone, and I'd only glimpsed Vivere's familiar hair in the garden once. Something had to have gone wrong. It felt strange to not have Vivere leaving me tea and flowers. I found myself worrying for him. He hadn't looked good the last time I saw him, not one bit. Every minute I poked around for him, I worried I would bump into Violo. While Violo didn't seem to hold any strong feelings towards me, I didn't trust that he'd be in sound mind if Vivere was still not feeling well. Eventually, I found myself following the flowers in the castle, noticing that they seemed to grow thicker in certain halls. This tactic led me to a door that smelled equal parts like flowers and blood. The door was partially obscured by stone, but I managed to knock on the wood. "Vivere?" The door and wall shuddered. Then they paused. Slowly, the stone peeled away and the door swung open. Ooh! The room was dark and smelled strongly of tonics and incense. A familiar tall figure sat up with a pained wheeze and parted the sheer curtains of the alcove bed.
Ah, hello.
Treasure, what a pleasure. Apologies, I cannot stand to greet you.
Did he call me treasure? Ah!
New favorite nickname.
No, that's okay. I hurried over and saw he really did look bad. One of his legs poked out from the piles of blankets on the bed. The flesh of his knee joint had worn away, and it looked like his left leg was held together solely by messy black viscera instead of muscles. Oh, poor porcelain baby! Surprisingly, he wasn't bleeding, but pain made his face tight. I'm going to go get Violo.
He has already gone to get the items needed to treat this.
Vivere's clammy, shaky hand wrapped around my wrist. Is this a common thing?
No, this hasn't happened in centuries. Needless to say, it has us both a bit put out.
I thought the spells he was working on were supposed to make you feel better.
They were. Obviously, something is not working correctly. It's got us both stumped. Nothing changed with the spell. It's baffling.
Is it me? Is it because I'm here? Is it because I have an endless void of magic in my body?
A lump grew in my throat. A spell that worked perfectly fine for centuries suddenly doesn't work. Right around the time I began living here.
Did I cause this?
I could see the gears turning in his mind, but his expression settled into one of firm concern.
Little guest.
Do not repeat what you just said to Violo. I will bring it up with him.
Do you think he'd kill me?
I don't know, which is why I will talk to him.
If it is me, I shouldn't be here. I can't have my boys, my baby boys, who I've now decided that are my baby boys, be sick because I'm here.
Even if I ask you to stay?
Even then.
Vivere reluctantly released me. Violo is smart. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, he probably will. Hopefully in a way that doesn't kill me. I ended up passing by Violo in the hall.
He didn't even say hello while beelining back to their room. Kinda rude, but I fully understand your husband's in danger. The library would be free to use, and if I was killing Vivere, I needed the way out of here sooner rather than later. I brushed the chains against the mirror and waited. My heart hammered in my chest at the droning silence. Were none of them available? 3 of them, and not a single one could bother to answer me? My grip on the chains tightened. I felt angry tears burn in my eyes.
There we are. Apologies, David, I was doing something.
I almost fell to my knees at the sound of Amare's voice.
Amare, it's bad. Vivere isn't doing well.
I'm aware. You missed a screaming match.
Ooh.
Violo was threatening to go torture Hamos's little human so he'd know what it feels like to watch a loved one suffer.
Aw.
He thought Hamos had intentionally sabotaged a recent tonic recipe sent. Violo often forgets that Hamos is not cruel like he is.
Their voice was casual, neutral.
I get that Violo is upset that Vivere is uncomfortable, but Vivere's immortal. I can't understand why he's so frantic.
Amare surprised me by chuckling.
Oh dear, that thing isn't immortal. It's ageless. There's a difference.
What?
Vivere doesn't age, but I assure you, he can die. Don't get me wrong, it's hard to kill him. Violo's power does everything it can to make it near impossible to kill him. But it can die. If Violo were to ever stop his care, Vivere would die within a day or 2.
Oh no. Oh no!
It's me. I'm the reason he's not doing well.
Of course, anyone with a lick of common sense would piece that together after reading Violo's initial reports. You absorb energy. Vivere already overproduces, and it is the body's natural response to produce even more when it is drained. It was inevitable that a problem would arise. Violo is so sloppy sometimes.
Why didn't you tell him?
Should I have?
Aren't you friends of a sort?
I could sense Amare smiling.
Don't ever imply that to Violo. He might break your jaw. We do not have that kind of relationship.
Son of a biscuit!
Language.
Sorry. I will swear if I want to. This is the worst news I could have heard. I mean, I could just go. I could just leave. You guys want to help me leave? I'm causing Violo's husband to be sick. I could just go.
Don't worry. We're going to get you off that island. We're just waiting for the experiment to end.
The experiment to end? I might die before that happens.
Violo still needs to confirm something important. It's rather vexing that he hasn't achieved that last step yet. It's coming along, though. Once that's done, we will be able to retrieve you. Just a bit longer. I know it's hard, but you are espoir du vide. If anyone can handle it, it's you.
Right. Fine. How much longer?
I can't say. The experiment and Violo's caginess about it is making it difficult to plan. We are working on it, though.
I hate not having a timeline.
I know. Just hold on.
Amare and I spoke for a bit longer about the semantics of how I would get out. The running idea was to escape through the heart chamber. When I voiced my concerns, Amare reassured me that they would be using a bit of magic when the time comes to collect me. I still felt uneasy, but it was nice to know I hadn't been forgotten. It was only in the darkness of my room that night I realized never once did Amare say that they were coming to save me this time. Days continued to pass. I had my meals, but the unease in the air felt suffocating. The two had divided opinions on me, and that division might get me killed.
I'm trying to be both of your friends. Let's make this a poly relationship.
But then again, I am killing one of them, so maybe I should go.
Sure, one may like you more than the other for now. That might grant me some leeway. It was just as likely that the extra attention painted that target on my back an even brighter red. The rope I found myself balancing on felt more and more rotten by the day. Of course, I knew I had just enough to hang myself with it if I messed up. Not knowing when I'd run into a situation that could mess it up made me feel even crazier. All I could do was scream into my pillow. The drowning monotony finally ending with an all too familiar sound. The wheezing beast slammed the door open and hobbled inside of the room. Not now, I'm existentially screaming and panicking. The apparition surged forward and tangled two of its hands on my chains. Oh yeah, I'm still chained up. Then it proceeded to pull me hard enough I almost fell to the ground. I kept my footing and poorly stumbled along behind it. Impatience had the creature yanking my chain any which way, and I struggled to stay upright. The thing even practically swung me around a corner. Hey! My joints, from wrist to shoulder, felt like overcooked meat by the time I staggered into Violo's library. Impatient, grimy hands pushed me even more, and I finally snapped enough to rear back and strike at the apparition with my chain. It wailed and hobbled away.
Don't damage my prisoners without asking me. They're all on routine torture to maintain their breakage. Disrupting their schedule can affect their conditioning.
Maybe it shouldn't be flinging me around like a sack of potatoes.
Maybe you should have more value than a sack of potatoes.
Oh, Violo, that wounds me. Are you saying we're not friends no more?
Unless you've forgotten, you're currently no better than poisoned water, even if you are a useful poison.
Violo finally looked at me properly. His perfect replica looked worn down. I sincerely doubted he'd slept at all recently. Since I'm here, I'm assuming we have an experiment?
What?
Of course not.
I blinked.
All experiments are on pause until I make you less dangerous for my sunshine to be around.
I take it your solution requires me to be present physically, then.
It does. You are an abomination.
I stared at him.
An affront to all natural order, and that was done on purpose.
I wondered if I could stare a hole through him.
Oh, not as an insult. It's actually good. You're something I've been waiting for.
Waiting for? Violo nodded so fast, I wondered if he'd snap his own neck.
You're a miracle that happens so rarely. You are a child of two lucidities.
My mind hopped back to the conversation Vivere and I had. That statement made no sense. I can barely use intermediate magic.
Oh, that's because you're not normal. You see, the wall that separates the realm between from the realm beneath is a hard barrier to cross, from either side. It's where the gods sequester themselves, after all. Now, human minds naturally go to the realm between when they sleep, but only two of the fragments of dream can cross the wall to the realm beneath. One of those fragments has been lost to the other side. I plan on recovering him, but that will take some time. The other one, poor daydream, isn't strong enough to influence the make of a human. Perceptions, yes. Physical form, no.
Okay.
The power lies with fantasy, nightmare, and void. They are bound to the realm between.
I feel like I'm staring at a puzzle with blank pieces.
Lucidities are those blessed with the power of the sleeping dream. When their sleeping host chooses people, the fragments can never know. He doesn't speak anymore. But those lucidities can interact with the realm between. They serve as a bridge. Through them, the fragments of dream can touch this world. Fantasy and nightmare touched me when I was young. Through them, life was able to reach me through her torment and grant me her power. Possibility.
Your ability is a gift from a god you want to kill? I might as well have stabbed Vivere for how angry he looked. Ugh.
What?
Not life. Never life. Life did not agree to this. They have her fragmented beyond function. All she can do is occasionally pull herself together for a thought. His voice dripped with sorrow and venom. They force her to create more life as they twist it, but they care not for the damage they cause. He shook his head in disgust. Life and her torment are a story for another time. Okay, so not all the gods are a-holes. Just like how I was greeted a blessing from the fragments of dream, you were given something too, albeit closer to a curse. The azure bone cage. That is the question you are a solution for. The bone cage, the place where Nakare slaughtered the god of justice with her bare hands. Nakare punched a god in the jaw and killed it. The decaying corpse of the god that was permanently warped the surrounding area, creating a nearly inhospitable environment. I'd heard that the Godbreaker had worked to make it livable, but I'd never seen the place myself. We needed a way to remove those pesky god corpses, and here you are. You are a gate from the realm beneath to the realm between. You are a door to the fragments of dream. They can handle the corpses of the gods. Oh, so we're just gonna use, the realm of dreams as a dumping ground? We won't have to risk this world during the slaughter now. It's amazing. I feel so foolish not thinking about it logically. I kept trying to find some issue with you or a problem from one of those bastards, but no, you were a gift. For me. For the war effort. Which means I can fix this. I've already begun to understand your whole situation myself. Violo held out his hand. I watched a small black hole rip open in the fabric of reality. Within it, I could see a surrealist landscape, ever changing and unnatural. My hands trembled slightly. He had what he needed of me then. I no longer held any value, so why was he keeping me here? Of course, I don't know if my understanding is perfect. That's why we experiment. The issue you're causing is quite simple. You are a gate with no door. Oh, so maybe if you slam a door on the back of my neck, that might help. So I merely add a door to that gaping hole. You will no longer be a gaping maw. I'm going to put a sealant spell on you and make up the key series to control how much the door opens. A sealant spell was the worst punishment a magic user could receive in the Chain Isles.
Oh wait, is that not a good thing?
They would be able to absorb the energies of the world they needed to survive, but their magic would be functionally gone, sealed away. The worst part, though, a sealant can never be removed once placed, and the individual could never possess the key made for it. Oh, I don't really like this plan then, boss. My magic would be at his mercy, even long after this experiment was over.
Don't. I don't want to do that, boss. Hey, boss. Maybe we need to learn more.
Because that is not fine. I doubted Violo would bring this up thoughtlessly. For all of his out-there behavior, I knew he was sharper than his outer persona let on. Were the fragments of dream able to make me a gate? Why did it have to be me? Because you're the child of two lucidities.
What does this mean?
Violo paused. Right. Skipping a step, he waved a hand like he was batting away a gnat. Most lucidities are children when they awaken to their blessing. That's when Dream has settled on his decision. They are extremely rare. Don't take the living gods as a ratio example. We're overrepresented. If by a miracle, like your parents, two lucidities have a child, that child has the blessing from conception. He snapped a finger. Conception, not birth. Conception is the one time where gods can fiddle with the soup that'll make you up. You're still amorphous like that. Thus, the fragments were able to alter you to carry the gate. Isn't Amare famous because they were able to enter the home of the gods? Why do you even need a gate? They can't transfer things. I watched as little black wires crawled out of that dark light. The wires bubbled and hissed before warping into the skeleton of an anglerfish. Ah! It swirled around at dizzying speeds. Violo looked positively radiant. This is a manifestation of Void's miasma. It's part of him, so anything it eats will go to his stomach. Like the corpses of gods. Violo watched the small creature in rapture. I noticed a small wince in his face. I looked down at his hands and saw the Void eating away at the meat of his palms, black blood pouring out onto the floor.
Violo, your hands.
Yes. Violo dismissed the spectral fish and the Void. To my surprise, his injuries lingered. I haven't quite figured out the genetic sequences that allow you to not be swallowed up by your gate. Your very nature makes it exceedingly difficult to run tests. Despite his palms being fleshless with spots of bone poking out, he put them on his hips all the same. I've observed the devouring rate on multiple replicas. I've slowly improved it to the time it is now, but that's only on smaller gates. Anything bigger and the replica is devoured within a heartbeat. Given enough time, the smaller one would eat me away too. It's quite vexing.
I assume you're going to need more samples from me then.
Yes, I need to figure out how the fragments altered you in order to rewrite my replicas to do the same. Luckily, you were altered in conception, meaning life technically gave the okay for you to exist. I have her ability and possibility, not her authority on what can be.
Her authority on what can be?
Yes, if she knows and approves of something being made, it will be allowed to exist. Once the gods are dead and I can help her, I hope to beg her to allow Vivere the same mercy. It won't stop his health problems wholesale, but it'll stabilize him.
So, you can create, but you don't have the authority to say it should exist. That's why you need bases?
Violo nodded. To do that, I need to get to life. To get to life, I need the powers that be to open the fluffing door for me, and they're a biscuit demanding my end of the bargain first. Which means I need you alive, but I can't have you hurting my sunshine further. He pointed to one of the tables. So, let's fix that issue. Then I can finish my experiment, and you can do whatever the heck you want. The flat way he spoke told me that he wouldn't entertain further questions. I reluctantly submitted to the procedure. After all, it was better to walk away in one piece without my magic than to have him rough me up. Oh, so we still doing this? Violo did put me to sleep at least. I woke up on the table sometime later. Touchside papers had been scattered over me thoughtlessly. You just put a bunch of books and papers on my sleeping body?
Violo?
Don't use me as a bookshelf. Awake, are you? Good. I was worried I'd mixed the sleeping draught wrong. You will be relieved to see your arm in one piece.
It feels heavy.
I flexed my dominant arm. The weight difference was immediate to me. That would be due to the metal. It's heavier than crystal powder, but I don't have the time or care to perfect it further. That made sense. Sitting up and looking down, I found my arm full of new runes from shoulder to fingertip. Those runes were filled with liquid metal or crystal.
Did you rewrite my genetics?
Those kinds of markings were usually temporary bonuses at best, and they always caused inflammation. I only had mild tenderness at worst. No, the nature of your soul and body makes you hold raw magic in metallic or crystal form very well. Of course, it took a lot of material to build that up. It's why you feel heavy. You'll live, though. Hopefully. Violo ran a small test to make sure I could still independently move my arm before shooing me away.
I returned to my room without the familiar sounds of my chains rattling with me. I didn't feel any lighter, though. Once I felt the effects of the sleeping potion finally leave my system, I began to investigate the castle anew. Being free of the chains allowed me to move more quietly, and I didn't constantly have to make sure nothing was catching on them. I mourned the loss of my magic even more. In the past, if I needed to scale a cliff, I would use air elementals to make myself weigh less. If I needed light, I would just one snap away. Even with my full mobility return, I still felt a gaping hole where something should be. I was able to delve deeper into the castle. I found the edges of it, only to find that each window revealed a sheer cliff. The castle seemed to be carved into a mountain before the rest of that mountain had been carved away to make a sharp drop. Ooh. No plant life grew across the cliff face either. I made a rope of fabrics and dragged it across the cliff face from a busted window. There were no tears in the old fabric, meaning the rock had to be polished smooth. Ooh. Truly, they made this place a death sentence to try and escape from. Well, I mean, there are a bunch of prisoners and ne'er-do-wells here. My explorations brought me back to the dining room, starving. To my relief, I found Vivere in there. He looked tired, shaky hands and a pale face, but he looked a lot better than before. Vivere.
Ah, hello.
Ah, treasure. Hello. You're hungry earlier than usual today.
Vivere gestured for the chair next to him to move, and it backed up to give me space to sit. I did so, and examined his form closer. No blood pooled from anywhere. He didn't seem bruised. His breathing still sounded poor, but it sounded closer to normal. I've been wandering around a bit.
I can tell. It must be particularly vexing to not be able to control your temperature.
You can say that again. At least I can bathe in peace now.
No more rag baths, then?
How did you know I was taking rag baths?
How else were you able to clean? It's a basic assumption.
An apparition delivered my food to the table. The sound of the plates cut off our conversation. Soups, meats, vegetables, fruits, foods that I only enjoyed on rare occasions, were meticulously presented to me to choose from. Oh, is some of this for you, too?
Certainly not. I'm too nauseated for anything thicker than this broth at the moment. Enjoy it. The kitchen is happy to be cooking for more than 2 to 3 for a change.
I nodded and selected the items I wanted to eat. Hey, as long as the dishes don't start singing.
I'm glad we can enjoy each other's company again.
I nodded in agreement through a mouthful of food. My eyes strayed to the map he toiled over. What's that?
Energy notes and phenomena zones to stabilize.
I waited for him to explain further. Eventually, he did.
Violo has vaguely mentioned life's situation, yes?
Yeah. I thought she was fine, though. Nobody in the Isles is freaking out about there being something wrong with her.
Because the gods want people to think she's all right. She's actually being held in the worst state for a god, dying over and over.
I nearly dropped some of my food. But doesn't that make a big calamity when a god dies? What? Why?
Because she opposed the increasingly foul behavior of the other gods. They betrayed her, trapped her within her realm, and now they keep her in a constant state of death and revival. It fractured her mind, so it takes all she can do to hold on to memories between incarnations. Her purpose is not only to make energy, but also recycle it. She is supposed to take the possibility death decays and reuse it, but she has been unable to fulfill that part of her duties for a while. Instead of making a little bit each time and reusing the rest, she's making new amounts wholesale, against her will, of course. That caused some of the unique phenomenon found in our world, like how major sections of Sagius sank into the sea, creating the sand stripes of now. Violo hopes to use that little talent of yours to deal with this issue by acting in life's stead. I'm making notes of areas he should focus on.
He's going to try to change them?
Fix them, of course. I'm quite sure many of the islands in the Chain Isles will be overjoyed to not have the ocean turn acidic twice a year. That's just one example of the folly of those morons.
Vivere wrote his next notes even more harshly.
Of course.
Of course, we probably won't be able to fix all of it in one go. Doing too much could affect the world in a bad way. For now, we'll be content with dealing with the energy problem and laying the groundwork for the future. The gods kept Violo around because they'd always hoped he'd develop life's talent for change. They figured a human would be easier to control. How joyous it will be when he starts to prove that idea wrong by messing with the phenomena.
The natural phenomena of this world were decently documented, so I knew there were many. Many were described as curses from the heavens, punishment for humanity's sins. Those two were bold. I knew they plotted to kill the gods, to try and change the world to fit their whims while the gods were still around. That was a level above even what I expected of them.
Where's the, "That sounds so cool, buddy"? Hey, anything I can do to help?
How cute.
That sounds fun.
You're adorable to offer. But no, there isn't.
I know my magical capabilities aren't on the same level as yours and Violo, but I can manage some difficult spells. Violo said he's got the sealant keyed. I'm certain you have it. I can help. Vivere shook his head.
The magic of this place is rather lively.
He reached out and tickled one of the teacups. It shuddered and playfully skipped to go get more tea from a pot nearby.
It's not just the objects. The magic itself is persnickety. We would need to slowly integrate you into the magic flow here. There's just not enough time for that. Don't worry, just by being here, you are helping. Violo does desperately need to figure out how you are made, so he can try to replicate those effects. Honestly, I don't know if he'll have enough time to do that. If he doesn't...
Vivere tapped the end of his quill against the map over and over.
It will be painful for him. I'm so tired of him being in pain, but I know he won't listen to me about it.
Vivere paused to cough, patting his chest a bit. He continued to wheeze an uncomfortable amount. He reached out for my hand and gestured for me to pat his back. I did so gently at first. He lightly slammed his fist against the table and shot me a look. Reluctantly, I pat him harder.
Just like ball up your fingers like this and go wham!
Is that better, Pookie? He coughed, and I watched him spit something hard and white into his hand.
Is that your crystallized lung?
I'm going to get Violo.
You're going to eat dessert.
He pulled me back into my seat.
My body just does this from time to time. Unless I'm seizing, there's no reason to bother him.
I glared down at my plate for a moment. If he's capable of making replicas for himself, why hasn't he made one for you?
Because I need to eat and sleep. Violo's main body doesn't, so he can endlessly meditate. Besides that, replicas need to be extremely close to the original to function properly. Violo would be more comfortable if he didn't have the litany of scars he does, but he has to have them because it causes cognitive dissonance to remove them. While that dissonance isn't too terrible, it is exceedingly distracting. The distraction can get a magic user killed by their own powers very quickly.
Your father doesn't look like a human at all.
Father has always been...
Vivere pursed his lips.
Eccentric? Honestly, I love him dearly, but odd would be a better fit. As someone who fiddled with necromancy, his concept of self and soul is different than most. Thus, he is more open to such differences compared to humans.
Aren't you technically not a human?
I was made in their image. I'd need to be moved to a whole new body, and the shock of going into a body dramatically different from my original one could kill me. Well, moving my soul at all would kill me. My soul is too fragile. Just touching it sent me into an hour-long seizure and left me with this.
He stroked a hand across the rose pattern in his vitiligo. Aw.
It also actually contributed to my lungs being weaker. Needless to say, seeing slight permanent detriments to my health just for trying has disincentivized further test.
I reached out towards the mark on his chest out of curiosity. You mean that's an accident? But it's so pretty. He moved his hand and tilted his chest closer to me. His skin felt unnaturally cold for a human, and I could feel his heart in his chest. The rhythm felt odd compared to a normal person's. There was an unnatural stutter that waxed and waned at random. The skin with the rose pattern felt hot to the touch in comparison to the rest of him, like blood remained right behind the markings. Does it hurt? I pulled my hand back.
Today, no. Sometimes, yes. I have 2 drawers full of medicine for a reason. As much as I detest that little snow crow, he does make good medicine. It's made my condition more manageable.
Oh, so maybe that's why in Sacrarium that the projection of Violo was so upset, was that Hamos was making medicine for Vivere. Hamos makes medicine for you? I couldn't think of a polite way to say, hates your guts. Vivere chuckled at my distress, patting the back of my hand.
He is disgustingly and pathetically kind. It's what gets him into so much trouble. That's why Violo is so paranoid about that new little pet he has. The little idiot would probably let the rat smack him around if it found the behavior pleasing. He's easy to abuse, and it constantly winds Violo up worrying about him. I hate it.
Vivere shook his head. Oh, you mean the cute little, wifey that Hamos has named Espoir now?
Of course, his kindness does have its limits. The kindest thing he could do would be to make me immortal. He'd never risk Violo learning the secret, though. Apparently, it would allow for Violo's cruelty to flourish. Cruelty. You can't be cruel to monsters.
Vivere sat back in his chair.
He's so sanctimonious about our actions when he's just as capable of being vindictive and petty. He just thinks his hands are clean since he's too much of a coward to do the dirty work himself.
Hey, he did some pretty cool stuff for me in the last game. Vivere's breathing began to get ragged.
Then he goes and picks fights with Violo because he feels betrayed for some reason, when he's the one who betrayed the love of his life. Someone he supposedly loved. Also,
I reached for him when he began to violently cough. Vivere, pause. Take a breath. I rubbed his back and patted firmly a few times. He coughed up a few more pieces of white. These weren't as thick as the first one, at least. We should talk about something else. I don't want you to be upset. Vivere took a few slow, ragged breaths.
You're right. We shouldn't focus on that booty cheek. We should discuss a meal plan for you moving forward. We may not be able to always eat with you, so I'd like to make sure we have your favorite foods ready as an apology.
Aww. He fussed over the days to come, pointing about how busy he would be. A particularly harsh cough interrupted him again.
Dang it all. I need to go get one of my tonics.
We can walk and talk.
But you need to finish eating.
I'm fine. I'm finished. I gestured to the plate I had indeed finished. Vivere's cute tendency to go off on random side tangents allowed me ample time to eat. Come on, let's get you your tussin. I offered my arm to him. Vivere pouted before reluctantly moving to stand. I said not a word during his slow process. He leaned heavily against me, making me worry further. I didn't voice my concerns out loud, knowing he'd only find them annoying. Aberrations scurried through the dining hall, gathering plates, One reached for his things, but I just grabbed them with my spare arm.
They can carry that.
Let me do this for you. I want to help you, and this is something I can do. He let out the most adorable little noise of frustration.
If you and Violo had your way, I would lounge on a couch like some prized opera singer.
That sounds like a great idea, Violo. Violo, let's get our baby a couch and have him lounge on the couch like a prized opera singer. Can you sing?
Better than Violo can.
Our journey to the pair's room was leisurely.
After this last experiment, things will begin to wind down at least. So don't worry too much.
If you say so.
It will be okay. I'll make it so.
Okay. I tried to believe him. He saw me off at the door of his room, and the sound of his next coughing fit didn't inspire confidence. Did I want it to be okay? Yes! In a way, that could be nice. I was planning to leave, though, so it would be better to focus on that. I needed to focus. Distracted mercs died. I had no intention of dying yet if I could avoid it. In the days to come, Vivere's affection for me became apparent. Oh, he was equally as busy as the cantankerous Violo, but he went out of his way to have his meals with me. Wait, so did I not get them both to like me? On more than one occasion, I heard the two bickering while mentioning my name. Luckily, Violo didn't seem too eager to drop any direct wrath upon my shoulders. Vivere fawned over me as much as he liked, and he liked it a lot. I'd grown used to waking up with a small arrangement of carnations at my bedside. Oh, I would love that so much! The familiar sight of an orange lily and the soil still attached blackening my water greeted me as well. Luckily, Vivere had prepared many drinks and foods for me, so I had enough options to eat. We had spoken the day before about having a chat in the garden after he saw his father off on some work trip. With nothing better to do after days of scouring this place, I ate leisurely before making my way to the garden. The garden was screaming. Oh, that's never good. The horrible sounds of wailing and sobbing, oh no, ran through my body like a shock, taking me back to a horror scene I'd endured once. I better not see! Vivere on the ground, lifeless, I will cry! I dashed through the withering maze of greenery and crying flowers. I half expected to find some kind of magical detonation at a small horde of wounded civilians. Oh yeah, I forgot, other people. What I found was, in a way, worse. My baby! Vivere's body, stiffly seizing on the ground, head twisted back in agony. Black ooze poured from the seams of his body, leaking out around wild and natural flowers that grew out of him. His eyes were overtaken by bone growths shaped like flowers. Aww! And rotten flowers leaked out of his mouth within the black foam. Even from a distance, I could see that he was struggling to breathe. He was dying. The sight had me on my knees by his side in no time. I tried to think of anything I could do to help, and came up blank in my panic. With no other option, I did my best to heft him up and drag him across the garden. The moment one of my hands strayed too close to a certain part of his robes, something hot and vile shot out onto my arm. I pulled back with a scream, accidentally dropping Vivere in my pain. A violent black ooze crawled up my arm, burning canyons into my flesh.
No.
Owie!
No, no!
No! We have to save our baby! Violo appeared in the garden then. My sunshine! He scooped Vivere up and turned on my screaming form.
You! Dang it all, you were the worst decision I've ever made!
Hey! I thought I was helpful. Also, I love him too. He waved a hand in my direction. The malicious curse devouring me ramped up its speed.
I never should have let you stay near him, no matter how much he liked you. This is all your fault.
But... The last words I heard in my life were cruel ones. What?
I will not have you add my sunshine to the mountain of corpses on your shoulders.
What? I died? But my baby? What? I thought I was being nice.
Dead end 2.4. Regrettable, really.
But...
I don't know if there's a way I can get a better ending. Maybe there's some things I could have chosen to make Violo like me a bit more. But, what if I ask after he's, like, getting upset talking about his father, who he's turned into a misshapen beast, are you alright, buddy? You good?
Something was off about this. Violo blinked a few times, looking at me in confusion.
What?
You seem upset. Are you alright? It was like I'd spoken to him in another language. He reminded me of a confused puppy, head tilting back and forth.
Why? Why did you ask that?
Because you seem upset. Him being upset was a large hazard to my life, so it was something important. He stared at me, a slow bit of embarrassment forming on his face.
I flinched, didn't I?
He scratched at the gold on his chest.
Scum deserve to be punished. I do enjoy seeing him suffer, but at times it can be taxing to still see him alive. After everything he's done, it's...
He stopped, frowning at himself.
How did he hurt you? Granted, I think this is a fitting punishment for whatever he did.
Complicated. Rough home lives usually are. I recognized that look on his face. I'd seen it on many of my clients. A desire for revenge, warring with a desire for peace of mind.
Are they? I wouldn't know enough to be sure. You've seen more of the world than me, so I'll believe you. My discomfort aside.
His speed picked back up again, eager to move away from the topic.
Your bindings can cause issues for my spell work. This is a very important spell hierarchy. I can't have you damaging it.
You're setting a lot of spells to cast at once? Since he couldn't die, he'd survive it, but I could only imagine how much focus and will that would take.
Yes, for area maintenance, I need to stabilize all the energy. You might have noticed my sunshine's health has been doing poorly. That's a sign I need to do this.
His condition is affected by energy levels?
Very much so. It's why the sky is red. The sun is too strong of an energy conductor, and it fatigued him.
Oh, he loved him so much that he got rid of the sun.
That barrier took forever to put up.
How do you know it's red? Oh yeah, 'cause he's blind.
Because my sunshine forever teases me for getting the color wrong.
Ah! Oh, that's precious. That's precious. No harm should come to these two, even though harm's gonna come to me. He chuckled.
So please, avoid areas with black flowers. That's where my spells are. I don't mind you wandering around, just don't break my work.
Understood. Thank you for allowing me to walk around.
Of course. You'd be so bored trapped in your room. Once this spell is done, I will try to make your time more enticing. So maybe the fact that I didn't ask him if he was all right the first time made a big shift in everything. Because now, after he does the thing with my finger and burns it off and gives me a new finger, my stiff appendages felt better at least. Sniffing my hand revealed the smell of a common topical muscle relaxant. The flowers in the room had also shifted from half-wilted hybrids to lavender and graceling.
Oh.
I tried to ignore the warm feeling in my chest. The library was off limits, and I'd long since reached the maximum range of the boundary Violo established. That left only one place to explore, that odd secret door at the fountain. The aberrations actively moved out of my way and didn't interrupt me. More than a few came to a screeching halt to avoid colliding into me, bowing at me a few times in apology.
Don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. That part of me, broken by betrayal, had pushed its wrists out of its grave. Everything's being so nice to me all of a sudden.
Ah, hello.
I flailed a bit in Vivere's grasp before relaxing into his grip.
Is this where you hit me with a cheesy one-liner about falling for me?
His light teasing helped me collect my breathing. No.
What a pity. It would have been a good time for it.
I imagine Violo would think differently.
He wouldn't. We've discussed it.
Oh, that's different. Does Violo like me now? I blinked at him a few times. What kinds of discussions have you been having about me?
Simple ones. Complicated ones. Generally, they're good ones. In general, Violo lets me have anything I ask for, so I'm quite certain he wouldn't mind.
Oh yeah, now that I know the why of why they keep the little balls of life in here, that sounds beautiful, fellas. That's beautiful. I love that. He wasn't wrong that this world was cruel. I'd seen it tear apart the weak, time and time again. My knees ached with old memories of being on the ground, begging the gods for an ear, if not a hand. To think that for some, salvation had the chance to find them, albeit a small number. You've done a lot of good, then. He didn't miss a beat.
Of course.
We have. Our garden flourishes by the day.
Vivere looked down at the vast amounts of distant eyes that surrounded him.
It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding.
If only the actual gods could feel the same thing.
If only. Many of those bastards have succumbed to their hedonism and cruelty far too much. Of the remaining, only 3 are not complete wastes of space.
Vivere clenched his fist.
It's infuriating, but I try not to lose myself in that. I'd hate to become like them.
He forced his hand to relax.
Luckily, most of our aid manifests as single-time interventions, killing slavers, rescuing people from bad situations, fixing their bodies if we're able.
Long-term ones like these must be rare then. While the vast amount of eyes in the waters felt gigantic compared to the population of the world, they were probably just a puddle.
Of course.
They are. It's still a lot of work. Mind fragmentation makes it easier at least.
You and Violo can use that? Mind fragmentation was a rare skill, something low-level magic users like myself could only dream of.
Of course we can. The only one who struggles with it is Nakare. But that's a personality problem rather than a skill issue.
I raised a brow.
She's as stubborn as an ox. You have to be flexible and yielding for fragmentation. That's why plenty of humans have the capacity for it, but never achieve it.
I wonder if I could do it.
I could show you how if you like.
Really?
My. Look how your eyes light up at the suggestion. It'll take some time, you know. Well, I suppose you crave some enrichment. We'll talk about it later. For now...
He picked me up out of the water before I could react. To my mild horror, I didn't flinch or instinctively fight back. Are we friends now? Are we best as buddies? I just laid slightly stiff in his arms. It's like picking up a kitten and they keep their arms out.
You are beginning to deteriorate. Your color isn't good. We need to get you out of here.
Him speaking the words aloud made me feel the building fatigue in my body. How much pain had I endured that feeling like crap only felt a little unnatural?
This place is dangerous for you, as your void continues to absorb magic past your natural thresholds.
No one's casting a spell on me.
This entire room is magic. You are standing in it, saturating in it. Like I imagined, it is not good for you. You could possibly survive a walk to the beach, but you'd be worse for wear. Just ask to leave.
The idea of just asking to leave sounded so stupid to me I didn't comment. Would they let me leave, though? Would you want to leave, though? Vivere got me back into the gardens at record speed. I immediately began to feel better as the magic flowed out of me into the less magically dense air. He fussed over me after setting me on my feet, I got to actually examine his hands a bit being this close to them. He had no fingerprints, and the seams of his joints seemed angry and inflamed. Are you all right? Your joints don't look good.
It's been a lock-up day. It happens.
As if to prove his point, his finger didn't bend into a fist with the rest of his appendages. Oh, he's getting all stiff. He sighed. His sigh broke into a painful-sounding cough. My back straightened when I heard a soft gag as well. Both of us looked down in horror when black bile dripped into the ground. Oh no! If I see you die again, I'm gonna cry again! I'm getting Violo. Vivere's big hand tangled in my shirt before I could take a step.
Don't. It happens.
He tried to sound nonchalant, but I could see his hands shaking. Not like this, I assume. Something has you shaking. Vivere's grip on me tightened enough, the seams of his knuckles ripped open to bleed black. Oh no!
I should be better after visiting the heart chamber, not worse. Crap.
He weaved on his feet. I went to support his weight and keep him from toppling over. If you won't let me get Violo, let me go get your father. He shook his head.
Father is in the seas right now.
Then let me help you to your room. I let out an exasperated sigh at how long he hesitated before finally nodding in agreement. Come on, Violo would kill me if he found out I left you like this. Vivere just sighed in response. Vivere guided our awkward stumble fest through the castle. Even with my years of trained muscle, the man was a boulder to heft around. He didn't collapse outright, thank the gods. We reached a door, and it opened to darkness.
Lights.
Ooh. Oh, I get to go into his pretty room now. I stepped into their messy room. Clothes Violo's size were scattered everywhere. Books were stacked in corners. A massive bed with a thin curtain rested in an alcove. Despite his order, the room only brightened up so much. Aw.
The elementals can sense my state, and light hurts my eyes. Apologies, they won't burn brighter. They won't go against Violo's orders.
It's fine. My eyes will adjust. I helped him into the gargantuan bed, choosing to not comment on the massive pile of pillows and stitched-together cloth animals. Where's your medicine?
Second drawer of the vanity. Just bring the whole box and leave.
Shouldn't I help you take it?
No. The longer you stay here, the higher a chance Violo has to notice. I can't have him fretting over me right now.
I had the distinct feeling he'd toss me out if I lingered too much. I retrieved the hefty box from his vanity and hauled it over carefully. He lightly grabbed my wrist when I went to leave.
Thank you.
With that, his hand slipped back behind the curtain of his bed in a sign of dismissal. Of course. You're my little baby now. You both are my babies, and we're going to get married to each other. I gave a habitual half-bow before leaving Vivere to tend to himself. This wasn't good, but all I could do was return to my room. Vivere jerked up, startling his feline companion. It paced in circles on the table, while Vivere slowly lowered himself back into his seat when he couldn't maintain his balance.
Are you okay?
Yes, just a bit dizzy. All the magic in the air is unpleasant, to say the least.
I can imagine. Here, have a seat.
I accepted the offer and relaxed into the chair.
I think my beloved would be so distraught if he found his sunshine and his treasure both wheezing in the garden.
Wait, his sunshine and his treasure, does that mean Violo likes me now? Me and Violo bestest buddies who are gonna smooch in the garden? We're all just gonna smooch in the garden. We're all gonna have a smooch fest in the garden. Vivere chuckled without a hint of malice. I expected some level of jealousy, a sign that he was upset Violo seemed to like me. It never came. Man, I'm kind of glad that I accidentally got the bad end. I wasn't even trying to get the bad end.
We'll need to be careful heading back.
Of course. He'd probably be beside himself if he saw you right now.
You as well. I mean it.
Maybe.
How cute.
Stubborn little thing.
His voice softened fondly all the same. Not him. You. I wish I had someone who loved me as much as Violo loves you. His face flickered between being shocked and being pleased. In the end, he settled somewhere near the middle of those two emotions.
Yes, Violo does take very good care of me. Even without your particular background, anyone could be envious of our relationship. Though I imagine it strikes a sore spot for you in particular.
I nodded.
You know, we are capable of sharing.
Please stop making fun of me. That joke is getting old. It's not like you guys actually like me and want me to be part of your relationship. Ow! I twisted my braid.
I assure you that I tend to be quite obvious with my mockery. I'm being serious. We both are growing quite fond of you. If you would like, you could rely on us. We're loyal and passionate. We'd be willing to defy anyone for you, the powers that be or the gods.
Every time someone has said something similar to that, it hasn't ended well.
Because they're weak humans, prone to manipulation from devils and gods. We have always stood in defiance of those things. We won't break or bend like all those little mistakes you've made in the past.
His honeyed words slid deeper into my mind than any threat could. It had been so long since someone gave me such soft reassurances. Even my last friend was more of a callous mutual respect. Oh yeah, I forgot, that's how this game starts. We got literally stabbed in the back by our captain or something. It's a lot to think about.
Of course.
Luckily, we have all the time in the world.
Since I'm making different choices, and I know this is probably gonna end up in me dying, but what if I moved and tried to save him? Because he's my little buddy. He's my little buddy, and I love him, and he's adorable, and I want him to like me. Move in and try to save him, even though the whole thing's gonna blow up. It would be a waste of time to try and warn him of the danger coming his way. I ran forward towards the circuits, cursing the chains on me. If I had access to my own magic, I could possibly fix it, but that line of thinking would do nothing for me now. I wrapped the chains around my fists and began to damage paths to the affected components. I was just going in there punching magic with chains. The glowing runes would still detonate. I still might die, but the results shouldn't be as catastrophic. Violo tensed and turned to look at me when his hand brushed back against a circuit I damaged. He looked angry for a moment before his tired eyes widened. He ducked under the failing magic and wrapped himself around me right as a horrible shrieking noise echoed through the room. Darkness overtook me as I fell to the ground. The ground shook, and I could hear parts of the floor being ripped apart by the blast. The weight of Violo's body rested oddly light on top of me during those terrifying few seconds. Wait, did we both not die? Then the darkness melted away, and Violo didn't move. I blinked a few times, coughing and rubbing at my eyes when dust and smoke began to smother me. Violo! His name died in my mouth. Violo's body rested on top of me. His head was nowhere to be found. He's fine. He's fine. He's good. Violo? I sat up and carefully cradled his stiffening body in my arms. Some part of me expected to see his blood grow out of his neck and begin making a new head from scratch. It didn't. His blood just continued to pour out of his neck like any other injury. Violo, can you perceive me? Could he perceive things without his head? He didn't rely on sight or sound with his head on, but he might still need a brain. The limits of his immortal body were unknown to me. I stood up, lifting his body with me. He felt so light, it was scary. I could be thinking of it wrong, but I have a feeling that Violo is like either shorter than me or about my height. Smoke and dust practically choked me as I stood. I saw it all beginning to flow out of the damaged room and into the hallway through the ruined door. Energy pooled in the floors and walls and drying over like blood in a cut. Tables carefully pulled themselves together with strong tendrils of energy. Cute little pots helped books find their pages. Aww. And tools hobbled around collecting fragments of the broken jars near them. Aww. The only thing not showing signs of recovery was Violo's body. He felt colder, unnaturally so. Am I gonna be mourning and screaming and he's just gonna come in with like slippers and a cup of coffee like, oh, I guess it died. Was my luck so manipulated by the gods and betrayal that I'd somehow gotten an immortal killed? I needed to get him to Vivere. Vivere had to know how to fix it. My feet were inches from the threshold when a familiar, short figure rounded the corner and almost knocked me off my feet. Oh my! Violo's strong hands wrapped around my forearms and kept me from careening backwards.
My dear.
Duvid? Goodness, what are you doing holding that thing? You're getting blood all over yourself. I blinked down at him dumbly a few times. Violo reached a hand out, brushing against my cheek. You looked so worried. It must have been scary to find this broken thing, Don't worry. It's just a replica. Think of it like one wine glass of dozens shattering against the floor. Mildly inconvenient, but nothing world-ending. My grip on the corpse in my arms faltered. I was torn between holding the body of what I'd perceived as Violo earlier and checking to make sure the one standing was real. His warm, calloused fingers against my cheekbone helped me realize I wasn't delusional.
You're really okay?
Yes, I am. There was a brief bit of pain when the replica died, but the plus side to lethal head injuries is that the pain is always brief. He carefully pulled the damaged body from my arms and set it aside, grabbing my hands with his. Aww. He pressed one against his chest. I could feel his chest rising with breath, his heartbeat steadily against his ribcage. See? This one is perfectly fine. I have multiple replicas of myself walking around. They're more fragile than my main body. Had that been the body near the explosion, I would have recovered within the same few heartbeats of the explosion going off.
There's no permanent damage then?
Well, that replica is probably done for. Even making a blank brain is such a hassle, but it wasn't a perfect one. Violo pulled my hand down and swung it idly. If it had been this replica, I would be more upset since this one is one of my perfect ones. At the end of the day, I can always make more. My body felt heavy with the oncoming adrenaline crash. I sat down on the ground. Violo followed me down, gently smiling.
You're okay.
I am.
Thank the gods.
It's been a while since someone besides Vivere said that. He chuckled, but it was a pained noise. That aside, you were very sweet trying to save me. I would have thought I'd get to see the dashing Duvid in action.
I didn't do a good job of it. Your head came off.
Only because I didn't let you in the end. I can walk off that kind of explosion. You'd be very dead. Still, your bravery is commendable. He squeezed my hands comfortably. I eventually squeezed back. Seeing that a lot of my distress had melted into fatigue, he pulled back to give me some space. He picked up the corpse and spun it like a dance partner while examining it. The body awkwardly stumbled along. Luckily, replicas don't need to eat. This one hadn't, otherwise this would be a very smelly accident. I'll probably just tear it apart for scraps. Waste not, want not.
Why do you have copies of yourself? To make up for the whole energy issue?
Violo let the body drop to the ground. Energy issue?
Too much power for a mortal body?
No, this is something similar, though.
The mortal mind cannot withstand eternity, thus immortal beings do not have perceptions of time. This includes me and my compatriots, with one exception. Humans emit a time stain that reaches out a mile from them. When we enter this time stain, our awareness of time returns, and that is really bad. Just imagine if I were senile or Amare.
Ha!
It'd only be a matter of time before we destroy the world. That idiotic snow crow has an even more painful example. He's actually keeping a little human pet.
Hey, Hamos loves me very much. He loves Espoir he loves that alternate Espoir very much. We're very good friends.
I couldn't tell what bothered him more, the fact that Hamos had a companion, or that the companion was immortal. He's been carving out pieces of his own memory and storing them in objects like some kind of barbarian. Truly, he has nothing in the face of a true genius. This is my solution to that problem. We can tuck our bodies away and use exact replicas from a safe distance to interact with humans.
Does it work?
It certainly does. You've proven it yourself, actually.
I have?
Yes. He reached a hand down. I took it and let him pull me up. Violo then folded my hand into his elbow to lead me out of the library. I have no idea how long we've been talking, for example. This is wonderful news.
Oh, okay, I didn't get it the first time. So, the real Violo is off miles away, meditating, while this is a really good replica, and the replicas are used so that the timey-wimey stuff that I'm producing doesn't affect his main body. Okay, I get it. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I wonder if it'll work on Time herself, but that's an issue for another day.
If your imprisonment is a punishment, why would the gods not let you just go crazy?
They want our knowledge and skills, of course. Only a fool throws away their best working dog because it has a bit of bite. Not to mention they are extremely arrogant.
Yeah.
Violo guided me through the halls. I felt comforted hearing his footsteps and feeling his living body walking next to mine. Then I felt worried that I found his presence comforting. Oh no.
My dear.
Hee.
By the way, did you need something from me, treasure?
He said it! He said the word! He said the nickname! Oh no, I'm in love!
Huh? You came into my library for a reason, I assume.
Oh, I hesitated. I couldn't reveal the mirror. I just wanted to check in on you.
His next words were so mumbled I barely heard him.
Oh,
if only. He smiled at me and spoke louder. I'm doing fine. A bit tired, though. I do still have some work to complete.
Oh.
Once we reached my room, the door opened, and I saw the wash basin had been filled with fresh water. So, while I would love to chat, it will need to wait. You should get that blood off of you, though.
Oh yeah, I'm covered in the blood of his replica. Got head blood all over me.
Right. Thank you. I didn't let him go at first. Violo chuckled in amusement, but he waited for me to release him. I'm glad you're okay.
Oh, is he blushing a little bit?
I felt like a fool for admitting it out loud. He's my bestest buddy, and we're all gonna get married to each other. We're all gonna go to the garden, and we're all gonna smooch. The big smile he had on his face made that feeling fade.
Now you're just teasing me.
I'm glad to hear that. We'll talk more later. I nodded and waved him off. I took the time to clean up before venturing back into the halls. I still had work to do. In the days to come, my body recovered. The fatigue lessened, and I no longer felt pain walking the halls. I could sense that the spells had worked. The humidity had decreased. The air tasted better. The colors in the castle appeared more vibrant, and the apparitions seemed calmer. Despite all of that, an unshakable tension lingered in the air. The thing I hated the most had to be the growing worry in my chest.
It felt strange to have this much time on my own. Usually at least one of them would have popped up by now. Even with Vivere feeling ill, Violo would try to make some meals, and Vivere would drag himself to a few. Had the damage to Violo's body been greater than expected? Did something happen to Vivere? Are my boys okay? Are we still gonna have our smooch session in the garden? I poked around the garden and Violo's library. The pair were nowhere to be found. Even though it would be the perfect opportunity, I didn't sneak into Violo's library to use the mirror. I couldn't think of much else beyond finding the pair. Without access to my magic, I only had one option. Hey, you! I grabbed a skittering aberration by one of its extra arms. The creature shook and squealed in surprise, but it didn't lash out at me. It actually cowered onto the ground. Aww. That behavior was a far cry from what I'd experienced before. It made me realize that while I began my time here dodging aberrations, now they seemed to dodge me. Violo and Vivere, I want to see them. The creature whined pitifully before slightly raising itself up to crawl. I released my grip on it, and it continued to slink through the halls, never breaking too far away from me. Are you going to tell me where the babies are? The castle layout looked bizarre to me. It didn't match any of my previously recorded patterns. The creature stopped in front of a blank wall and let out a small wail. It proceeded to make me jump by bashing its mangled face against the wall. The stone bristled at the interaction. I swore I saw the wall slightly bulge forward in curiosity. I want to see Violo and Vivere. The wall shuddered in response. There was a pause. Then the wall slowly began to pull itself open to reveal a door. The door opened into a dim room. Flowers and papers overtook the floor. A large bed with a worn canopy sat unoccupied in a little alcove. Oh! Further into the darkness, my two hosts sat in front of the mirror. Vivere looked like heck, tired and pained. Violo tenderly ran a brush through his hair behind him, worried brows contrasting with a strained smile.
Ah, hello.
Vivere's eyes looked up to find me in the mirror. Hi, boys. Oh. As he did, Violo looked up as well, and the lights in the room grew brighter despite Vivere wincing. Oh. If you need the lights dim, I'll be okay.
It's fine.
Let me braid your hair, Vivere. I know how to do it. I did this myself. As he said that, the lights dimmed again.
My love.
Oh, they are so cute together.
Oh,
You have a headache.
sunshine.
Oh.
Wait, the music was a little bit loud. I don't know if you heard that. Hold on.
Oh, my sunshine.
Oh.
You have a headache. I doubt a bit of darkness will end the great Duvide. It could cause her a headache.
I'll live. I'm all right, boys. I'm just glad both of you aren't dead.
I carefully walked through the room to stand beside the pair.
I haven't seen you two around recently. Looking at the situation, I can guess why.
I look that bad,
A bit. I thought you were supposed to feel better.
He should be. He should be at his prime right now. Instead, he's had a surge of symptoms these past few days. I haven't been able to leave his side. Pointless worrying. I would have been fine. I haven't had a seizure. I've just been more uncomfortable. But a seizure would come. The worse your symptoms get. You made my body, my love. I live in it. I'm aware of its quirks.
The tension in the room felt suffocating. Violo's fingers flexed a bit, and Vivere looked down at his neatly organized vanity. I take it this line of bickering has also been going on for a while.
Yes. No.
The two scowled at each other. Babies, we all love each other here.
He's a worrywart, and it's annoying. This one is painfully reckless with his body, and it's stress-inducing.
Okay. I held my hands up in a placating manner. I get the feeling that you two are talking around each other. I don't know if that's going to help much. Let me be your marriage counselor.
Like someone who's been betrayed by every living soul they've encountered can comment on a relationship.
Violo yanked some of Vivere's hair, harshly. I drew a sharp breath in between my teeth. Vivere blinked and his mind caught up with his mouth.
My apologies. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's not the worst thing I've heard.
I still shouldn't have said it. Not when we agreed to try to treat you better. Wow, my sunshine really is out of it.
Violo sighed with one part worried stress and one part amusement. Vivere buried his face in his hands upon realizing that he'd accidentally let something slip.
We want you to be more comfortable. We're growing rather fond of you, and we know that honey is more appealing than vinegar. It's not easy, giving our personalities, but we're trying.
I see. I bit inside of my cheek to try and stifle the growing bit of excitement at the notion. My life had been long and hard, and the promise of something gentle, even twisted, truly sounded appealing at this point. Just tell Hamos and tell him he doesn't have to worry about the boat, because I'm just going to stay here forever with you guys. Especially since these two aren't as bad as I thought they were.
It's why it's so vexing that we've been occupied. We had plans, you know. Instead, I've been stuck in here, and Violo's been stuck adapting to my fits. I should have sent word. You were being fed, right? If the kitchen apparitions messed up the schedule, I'll peel their skin off.
Of course, Violo had to ruin my warm feelings with a disgusting mental image. No, I've been fed. I've just been worried.
How sweet. Adorable, really. I'll be fine, though. The fits seem to be calming down.
Vivere, I swear, if I come into the garden and I see you choking on flowers again, I will cry. I will cry and I will fall. I'll fall over and I'll cry. That's good. Are there any ideas on why things didn't go like they were supposed to?
The two sigh in unison. No, it'd be better if there was. Nothing abnormal happened during the main spells. We found no evidence of outside tampering. Truly, we're at a loss. Nothing went differently. It was all routine. The last time something went this bad, it was when we were first starting these spells.
A while then. I felt a bit of sweat pool in the back of my neck. Were they truly ignorant of the obvious, or were they trying to manipulate me? I needed to know. I'm different. I wasn't here last time. Violo's hands paused in Vivere's hair.
What?
Don't be ridiculous. Even with your condition, it's an overreaction to assume that your mere presence could affect me so severely. You haven't even been able to use magic.
Violo's eyes flickered back and forth.
She is still absorbing magic, though.
Vivere's shoulders curled backwards with his tension. Violo's haunting eyes looked over at me. To my relief, I found no malice in them.
Vivere's condition has two parts to it. You could manipulate one part of it. He overproduces magic. You absorb magic at a very high rate. Part of the reason why people don't want to be near you is that you cause fatigue by draining anything too close to you. That should make me feel better, not worse. If a proper balance was struck, it actually could. You could help stabilize him, David. Truly, you are a gift, a treasure. Violo, you know I detest it when you get ideas and keep them to yourself. If this miracle was set to happen, why are we now dealing with a catastrophe? Because there's no balance yet. Oh, I am so glad you reminded me of this, David. I can probably fix this. Good!
Violo looked so relieved.
I need some time, though. For now, try to maintain some physical distance.
Oh. I took a few steps back in reply. Do you think I could actually help Vivere?
Violo nodded enthusiastically. Well, I'll be darned. We should have just talked to you sooner.
See, communication is very important in a poly relationship.
Vivere finally seemed to be slightly on board with the idea. Despite the obvious concerns, the pair didn't toss me out. In fact, they encouraged me to sit on their bed and catch up. I felt myself begin to relax as the mood grew lighter in the room. Later, I walked out of the room with a calm smile that I wiped away. I was planning on leaving. I wasn't staying here. I wouldn't be able to help Vivere. My feet turned in the direction of Violo's library before I could get swept away by any other romantic notions the pair tangled into my mind. I was leaving. It was planned. Some part of me wondered if I could change that plan. I shivered at the possible consequences coming my way. The drowning monotony finally ended with an all-too-familiar sound. The wheezing beast slammed the door open and hobbled inside of the room. The beast scuttled over and lightly tugged on my chains, urging me to follow it. What? You better not be dragging me to see Vivere suffering. I know. Don't pull so hard. All I got was a bobbing head in reply. The aberrations... Who'd has?
What's the fluff? Don't call me, but I'm so busy.
The aberration seemed to understand me. It didn't pull too much on me. Instead, I found myself gently led forward when I didn't really need the direction. Oh, they're not manhandling me or anything. I don't know why you insist on delivering me entirely. I know where I'm going. Of course, the creature had no reply for me. Sure enough, I found myself back in Violo's familiar library. Had I not been a witness to the wreckage before, I would have never guessed magic had exploded in here.
Hello!
Espoir! It's good to see you. Violo didn't look up from rearranging all kinds of tools. His voice tapered off into someone who sounded exhausted. Haven't been sleeping well? How could I even think of sleeping when my sunshine is in such a state? No, I have been very, very busy instead. Did you find a solution? A possible one, yes. I figured you would. You look worse for wear, though. Love can be quite painful at times. He shrugged my concern off. Anyways, this problem should be over today. Should be. What's the plan, then? You are an abomination.
Thanks.
I stared at him. An affront to all natural order, and that was done on purpose. I wondered if I could stare a hole through him. Oh, not as an insult. It's actually good. You're something I've been waiting for. All right, so he's gonna put a magic lock on my entire magic, so... Okay, let's do it. It would be a lie to say magic wasn't convenient. I was going to miss it. Violo wouldn't hurt me. The certainty of that internal statement had me rocking back on my heels. He wouldn't. I really believed that. We're boyfriends and girlfriends now. I was safe. My breath came in slightly ragged. Treasure? Violo turned and gently grabbed my hands.
What?
What's wrong? Are you scared? I can go over the procedure in more detail if you want. No, it's not that. It's that every time you call me treasure, it makes me blush. I felt like crying. I felt stupid for feeling like crying, but the sudden sureness of my vulnerability left my knees weak. What is it, then? Am I safe? Violo let out a concerned noise. Of course you are. I have no intention of harming you. Neither does Vivere. Violo squeezed my hands comfortably. Yeah. I hated how good that felt to hear. Let's get you settled comfortably, okay? I need to make the sleeping tonics fresh if we want them to be gentle. That's going to take some time. That's all right. Violo fussed over making the table as comfortable as possible for me. Aww. I laid atop blankets and pillows while he worked. To keep my mind distracted, I asked him questions. Why am I important? Because you're you.
Not like that. I covered my face with my hands to hide my embarrassment. Why is it important that my parents were both lucidities?
Once a human being is formed, it becomes near impossible to add things to them. Well, good things. There's a reason why curses always cause damage. That's why most people are blessed from birth or get blessings that are not intermixed with them.
Is there a difference between an intermixed blessing and one that isn't?
The latter is easier to remove and never as powerful since it's technically borrowed. If a blessing is added during conception, though, it becomes spread throughout the child's body and becomes theirs. Normally, a lucidity only receives their blessings later on in the womb, near the end of their time there. You had that blessing from the moment you were nothing more than an amorphous blob in your mother's belly. That meant that Void could put a piece of him into you and modify that lucidity blessing. You are a gate directly from our world into his miasma, which is where we need to deposit god corpses in the future.
Violo turned away from some brewing jars to hold out his hand. A black void that looked into a surreal dreamscape manifested into his hand. From it, a thin, small black snake slithered out and began to swim in the air.
These are manifestations of that miasma, too, given independent sentience in a manner similar to elementals. Whatever this little guy eats will go directly through the wall and into the realm between.
Oh, okay. I think I get it.
I watched the black snake for a time, until the smell of blood caught my attention. Violo's hand was being eaten away, gaping wounds tearing across it.
I sat up frantically.
Violo noticed and dismissed the orb to come comfort me.
Violo, your hand.
Shh, don't worry. I don't feel it. He poked the meaty remains of his palm. I've modified this replica to not feel pain, a necessary addition after the first one got destroyed outright. I haven't been able to figure out your exact makeup yet. You are part of the gate, so it doesn't consume you. I am technically still other, and made out of raw possibility, thus it wants to eat me alive. I hope to fix this soon, after we deal with the issue of you aggravating my sunshine's condition.
I reached out a hand to him, but hesitated. How do I not eat other people alive, then?
Violo grabbed my hand and rested his cheek in my palm. You do, just not so overtly. Right now, you're pulling heavily on my energy. You've probably noticed that people become fatigued or moody when around you too long. You're slowly eating away at them, because the gate in you is mercifully very small.
He reaches a hand out to my chest.
It's about the size of an acorn, if not smaller. Were it any bigger, it'd be an issue. Once I figure out how to replicate the parts of your body that make the gate not devour you alive, I'll be able to control it like you can. Down the road, we'll work on helping you get more in tune with the gate. It's part of you, so I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to control it if you train enough. For now, we don't have that kind of time.
One of his jars began to rumble. He kissed the back of my hand and had me settle back down before going back to the potions. Hee! Oh no, the boys like me! His hand never healed itself. Violo, your hand.
Wounds left by the miasma on things that are not you cannot be healed with possibility. I'm going to have to cut this hand off and reattach a new one.
Is this power really something you need so badly?
Yes. Just the death of one god left such a visible mark on the world. Imagine what's going to happen when we kill almost all of them. He gave me a big smile. It will be fine. I'm a genius, treasure.
He handed me a sleeping potion to drink in short order.
Violo babbled on about the possibilities with my abilities down the line while I drifted off slowly. I did get to see the uncanny art of him severing the damaged hand and a new one rapidly growing out of the bleeding stump. See? All better. You can break just about anything on me, treasure. I can take quite a lot of abuse.
He stroked my cheek.
My sunshine can't, but we'll fix this. Together.
I fell asleep. When I came to, I was in my room. It felt like coming out of one of the most relaxing naps I'd ever had. Violo's replica sat at my bedside, eyes unfocused, chest not moving. I tapped on the bed near him groggily. Violo? No response. Did he just conk out? Touching him when he wasn't focused on me could be a bad idea, but I did it anyways. I would definitely touch him when he's sleeping. I would curl his hair, I would feel his soft little cheeks. I'd ruffle his ruffled shirt. I grabbed the back of his shirt and tugged on it. He fell backwards onto me, body stiff and unresponsive. Are you not there? I huffed and went to pat his cheek with my dominant hand. I better not get the option to kiss him while he's away from his body, because I just might do that. That was when I saw the work that went into my arm. Runes were lovingly carved into my arm, flowing easily across my skin. Fine crystal powder had been gently inserted into the runes and marks, leaving no inflammation or pus. I rolled my shoulder, marveling at the fact the powder didn't seem to make my arm feel any heavier. Oh, did he put in extra work now that we're friends? Isn't this only temporary? I tried using crystal spells before. My body always consumed more energy than the mages were willing to expend. Beyond that, the human body would eventually push out inorganic magical material like crystals. I mean, technically, yeah, but I can always just add more. I jumped at the sound of Violo's voice. He gave me a sleepy grin from my lap before sitting up. His hands reached for my altered arm, checking on it. It took a lot of powder to even fill these up, but it should last you a few months. When it starts to get low, you might begin to feel some discomfort from the sealant. I'll refill it then. I thought most sealants were nailed into the person's bones to keep it from leaving them. That's for criminals, treasure. I wouldn't use such barbaric methods on you. Violo tutted at me. How does your arm feel? Any pain? No, I don't even really feel fatigued either. Then it's working. Good. You should more easily be able to live as a normal person for now. Normal without my magic. I couldn't stop the grumble. Really? Is that what you think? I frowned and reached for my magic. Reaching deep within myself, I sank deep within my own mind. Usually, the process required strain and a great deal of effort, but this happened as naturally as breathing. I could feel my magic, damaged and weak from disuse and whatever blessing I'd been born with. My mind could reach out and grab that magic, pulling it around the hard glass of the sealant in my mind. When I opened my eyes, I realized I'd opened my third eye. The air elementals in the room lazily danced around, minus the ones clinging to me. It felt funny to feel them scurrying around my throat and mouth, to be able to track everything I said. Oh! I felt them buzz, and I could sense the energy going from them to Violo rapidly. Oh, indeed. He pinched my cheek affectionately. Vivere has been hounding me about it for some time. I know you probably don't feel pretty good. Your body is still filtering out that potion, so rest for a bit longer. I'd hate for you to try and move around only to crack your skull open. I really want a bath, though. I'll have an apparition prepare some water for you later. He pushed me back down against the pillows. For now, relax. I need to go adjust my theories and whatnot, but if you need me, call. I nodded and relaxed into the covers. I actually missed Violo after he left, but the joy of being able to summon fire to my hands again helped me keep me distracted until I dozed off again. Once I felt the effects of the sleeping potion fully leave my system, I began to investigate the castle anew. Being free of the chains allowed me to move more quietly. I didn't constantly have to make sure nothing was catching on them. Of course, the greatest blessing had to be having my magic once more. The elementals of this place didn't pay too much attention to me, but I could coax them into focusing. No longer did I need to squint to see. I could finally adjust my temperature to stop sweating in the humidity. The whole castle had felt alive before, but now I could sense each heartbeat of energy pulse through the place. Each apparition had its own warped, skewed aura. Streaks of magic and veins of runes kept the spells on this place alive. In a way, it was beautiful. I've been wandering around a bit.
I can tell. Your little spells have had the apparitions in a tizzy.
Huh? Oh, crap. Sorry.
Vivere waved around my concern and patted the back of my hand. It's fine. They need to get used to your magical fingerprint anyways. You'll be here for a while.
Oh, be here for a while?
Yes?
Where else would you go, treasure? At least until this whole business with the gods is settled, Pario is the safest place for you to be.
Vivere reached out a hand to stroke my cheek.
We want you to be comfortable, so it's better for the aberrations to adapt to your presence.
An aberration delivered my food to the table. The sounds of the plates cut off our conversation.
It looks like Violo continues his reign as the smartest of the living gods. It would have taken one of the other three forever to come up with such a quick solution to our little problem.
Vivere tapped my affected arm.
I'm glad we can enjoy each other's company again.
I nodded in agreement through a mouthful of food. Yeah, if we're gonna smooch in the garden together, I need to be able to be near you. I've got my magic back, so I can do a lot more than you might think.
Vivere shook his head. The magic of this place is rather lively. It's not just the objects. The magic itself is persnickety. We would need to slowly integrate you into the magic flow here.
Of course.
Of course we will do that, but by the time you'll be able to really mess with the magic of this place on a deep level, this experiment will be over. Perhaps you will be able to help next year. Don't worry, just by being here, you are helping.
Our journey back to the pair's room was leisurely.
After this last experiment, things will begin to wind down at last. Well, a bit. Our part will be done, so we'll be able to focus on you. What would you like to do? Slaughter your old enemies? Help some old friends? We are quite influential. Anything you want, we can do, treasure. You just need to ask.
Can I leave?
We'd prefer if you didn't. I mean, it'd be so dangerous.
Vivere, I'm someone who walked among the winds and constantly treaded new grounds. I don't know if I'd adapt well to being in one spot.
You could try, at least for a bit.
His grip on my arm tightened.
We just want to keep you safe. We can always talk about it more once things are dealt with. Please, stay with us. Give us more time.
His pleading almost made me think he knew what I was planning. I swallowed around the lump in my throat. I'll think about it.
Thank you. Violo will be so happy when he hears this. So happy.
His excitement was dashed by a dizzy spell. Oh, Vivere.
Sorry. I'm still stabilizing. I cannot wait to be able to be excited properly again.
His tired smile made it harder to stop at the door. I wanted to follow him inside.
We'll have this conversation in detail later. I now have to rifle through my drawers.
I could keep you company.
I'm going to nap afterwards, but you're sweet to offer. I promise we will have all the time in the world to chat later.
He reached for my hand and kissed the back of it.
For now, go stretch your legs and enjoy a bit of freedom before this place gets chaotic again.
Okay. Vivere shut the door, and I waited outside it for a few heartbeats. I raised my fist to knock on the door, but I pulled it down again. I was supposed to be leaving this place. Leaving. I no longer wanted to, and that made me really question how bad my psyche had degraded over the years. The following walk I had left me stewing on my thoughts long enough that I found myself with only more questions and no answers. The next few days were spent with Violo and Vivere fussing over me whenever their busy schedules allowed it. Aww. During that time, not a single experiment was run. Instead, I found myself having long conversations over snacks for the first time in a long time. Things began to tinge with a sense of normalcy. I would remain to my room to sit and stare at the wall, knowing that the boat meant to take me from here grew closer by the day. Their words lingered in my mind. I chased those thoughts around like an impatient hound, pacing circles in my room. For the first time in over a decade, my stomach remained full. I could ask for just about anything, and one of the creatures in this place would go find it, assuming it couldn't hobble to me, of course. My nightmares had reduced dramatically, and when one resurfaced, I'd wake to Violo soothing me into a deeper slumber. My room always smelled of lavender and chamomile, and the air seemed fresher. Vivere seemed a bit weak still, but he went out of his way to keep me entertained, telling me about all the magical theories only the rich got to learn in the Isles. One would almost think I'd met them by chance on an adventure, not by them rescuing me from a slaver ship. I stared at today's breakfast by my bed. The tray was full of my favorite things, with a variety of drinks clustering in one corner. The utensils wriggled about, and one of the teacups seemed to be practically wagging its handle like a tail. I'd gotten used to such adorable displays. The castle and its parts reflected their masters better than any mirror. The apparitions had seemingly moved on to practically worshipping me, bowing low and backing away from me if I needed to pass by. I'd never gotten this kind of royal treatment before in my life. Of course, someone as unlucky as me needed to be kidnapped first. I ate the food leisurely, not afraid of someone stealing it, or something stealing me away from my meal. The pair never called me away from food. No, if they needed me, they always sent the request after my tray had tottered off with empty plates. A small note had been wrapped around an orange rose. "Hello, treasure. Violo is going to be locked away in that musty library of his today." Violo's comment was scribbled almost illegibly nearby, a sign he relied on elementals to guide his pen. "My library is not musty." "He's going to be trying to make a new replica. It's a delicate process, so he won't be able to look anywhere but in front of him. I know you've been wanting to get out of the castle some, so I've requested Father to give us a hand. Meet me in the garden when you're ready, and we can go tour the jungle below the mountain. Stay near sunshine. Traps. I eagerly await your presence. Be out for dinner. I'll be out for dinner." Violo had scribbled enough on the page that the ink had slightly warped Vivere's words. I could still make it out. Cute. I'd briefly mentioned looking through the jungle below, wondering how Vivere got down there. The tropical jungle looked interesting to me, and I wondered what the pair kept in it. Thus I grabbed my things and went to look for Vivere. Uh-oh. The garden was screaming. "No, we're supposed to have a pleasant little outing today! Vivere! My baby and future husband!" I raced to his side, sliding across the grass that was slick with tears. The flowers nearby were reaching for him. I opened my third eye and saw that the plants were desperately trying to siphon away the extra energy threatening to burst forward out of his form. Oh! Their lower level of sentience made it impossible for them to remove the energy with enough efficiency to be effective. The raw power burned my palms when I reached out towards it. It felt like trying to tame a lightning elemental, pure energy lashing out at anything it could touch. "O winds of the sky, hear me! I command your attention and obedience!" The stagnant air exploded with energy crawling towards me, elementals pressing against my skin. I closed my eyes to focus and fractured my attention. One hand of my will pushed the elementals towards Violo's study, racing across the castle to reach him.
They met a resistance, the other local elementals twisting to reject them. The other hand of my will began to rapidly pull the damaging energy out of Vivere and into me. My temperature shot up dangerously fast, and I knew I wouldn't survive the onset long. The fever would kill me in minutes. Oh no! I had to get out. I gathered some of that raw energy and poured it through the elementals. A wave trail of fire shot through the air elementals igniting into flame. That flame burned against the castle door, which shook in confusion of the assault. The rest of the energy I directed upwards. I pushed their weight into the clouds above, making them grow darker and darker. The very seizure didn't even begin to die down. I felt my body begin to creak and give under the weight of his power. Not just his power, but Violo's power too. This close, I could tell the difference between the thin webbing that made up Vivere's energy and the reinforcing black ooze that wrapped around it protectively. I hammered against the door to Violo's study before moving away and sending the energy around the building instead. The glass shattered much easier than the door did. Rain began to pour down onto Vivere and I then. Thunder and lightning roared above. The energy in Vivere slowly seemed to wind down. I was able to stop pulling on it finally, and I put both of my hands into Vivere's chest to focus on fixing his energy. I rolled him onto his side and began to evenly distribute his fuzzy, uneven energy throughout his body. I almost didn't even notice Violo collapsing onto his other side. I saw that familiar white light and made sure to pull my energy away from it.
No! No! No!
No, we have to save our baby! We have to save our husband! Tears poured from Violo's eyes while he worked. Vivere's blood poured onto both of us as Violo slowly began to fix his seams. The rain only grew louder as we worked. In a way, I was grateful for it. The cool water helped cool Vivere down. I got onto one knee, gently pulling Vivere up. I rested him against my upward knee, and I straightened his head for Violo to do whatever he needed to. Violo, very tenderly, dissipated the bone growths around Vivere's eyes, revealing that they were thankfully only skin growths. Mud, water, and blood soaked all three of us. I felt Vivere's breathing return back to its usual slight wheeze. I used my spare hand to wipe the remnants of foam and petals from his mouth. Once he seemed stable, Violo's hands still fluttered about. His frazzled, unseeing eyes scanned Vivere's body over and over. Oh yeah, he's blind, so he can't really directly look at his beloved. Violo, we need to take him inside. Violo continued to examine him. I reached out and grabbed his chin, pulling him to look at me. Violo! Listen, honey baby sweetheart. A hint of recognition and acknowledgement crossed his face then. We need to take him inside. Help me. Clarity slowly surfaced through the shock, and Violo nodded frantically. Dark shadows gently wrapped around Vivere, pulling him up off the ground. Violo moved the now comatose Vivere slowly. It took me nudging him every now and then to stop him from trying to pause and check for Vivere's pulse again and again. Not that I could blame him. I kept my other hand firmly pressed against Vivere's wrist, feeling that slow, sleeping pulse with its unusual rhythm to comfort myself. The castle was dead silent, apparitions cowering against the walls, and the curtains and walls curled inwards towards the sickly Vivere. See, even the walls are worried about him. We entered their dim room. I was fully prepared to just endure, but the candles lit themselves for me. Violo stood breathing raggedly between sobs, focused again on Vivere. I looked at the three of us, and then turned to the room. We need clean water and towels. Where are their clothes? The room bursts with energy then. Within seconds, a tub was paddling into the room, sloshing water out of itself. An armoire extended its rods out, holding up a variety of their attire. I put my hand gently on Violo's shoulder. He looked up at me, still lost somewhere in his own head. Help me get him undressed. We need to clean him up. It took Violo a moment to process the words.
and I did have to repeat myself more than once. Eventually, he got it, and we got to work removing the now ruined robe Vivere wore.
Oh yeah, the plants would have messed up his clothes.
The motions of gently scrubbing Vivere's skin seemed to help pull Violo out of whatever he was stuck in.
Be gentle with his scalp.
His gruff warning helped me relax a bit. Of course, I'm being very gentle, I promise. Once Vivere was cleaned up and dried off, Violo washed his hands thoroughly before moving to apply some poultices and oils to his skin and hair. Poultices. We had the sleeping man propped up in bed soon enough. Your turn. I tugged on Violo's shoulder. He stayed rooted by their bed for a moment, hands trailing through the blood on his body.
Oh.
Violo cringed with a half-sob, and I just nudged him towards the water. I didn't expect the tapestry of scars I found on his back and arms. How he managed to fight with so much scar tissue along his shoulders and joints, I had no idea. I lathered soap into his hair, keeping my expression neutral when parts of this replica's hair withered into ash at the merest touch.
Oh.
He looked slightly like a drowned rat by the time we finished, and he darted back to Vivere's side. I took the time to clean myself up too, getting all of the mud and blood off of me. My clothes were ruined, but the armoire offered me some of their clothes to wear instead.
Oh. Oh. Don't make me cry, you two. Oh man, he really is all banged up.
I pushed back the curtains to their bed, finding Violo resting on his side, hand on Vivere's heart. I reached down to get his attention again, tapping on the bed behind him. Violo, I'm going to give you guys some space. His hand shot back and gripped my wrist.
Stay.
His hand shook too much for me to say no. I awkwardly crawled into their space and sat behind Violo, monitoring the both of them. Vivere looked better than I expected him to, and my third eye revealed the alchemical poultices were working overtime on his body. Violo didn't let go of my wrist as he pressed closer against Vivere.
Thank you, Espoir.
Of course.
You're my boys now. I love you both.
As I watched the two finally begin to rest, I found myself unable to avoid the issue. I truly thought of them as people now, and I was really beginning to feel like I wanted to stay. I mean, I'd made friends in weirder situations. Was this really too far of a stretch? Would it really be such a bad thing to stay with them? It's not like they could do much worse to me than I'd already been through. I ended up dozing off while ruminating. The smell of fresh roses woke me up the next morning. I rubbed my eyes a few times to make sure I was seeing it right.
Oh, are you okay? Don't scare me like that.
Vivere sat up in bed, hair rumpled with a brush in hand and trying to tame it.
He knows to braid my hair before bed.
Vivere?
Ah, hello.
I went to push up, only to find that Violo had latched onto my arms.
Oh, we're all in bed together.
I gently tugged on them, trying to free myself. His arms were like a vice grip, stiff as a corpse. Actually, this replica wasn't breathing at all.
Someone's been barnacled.
Vivere snorted and gestured at the two of us with his brush.
I have been too. He's got his ankles crossed around my thigh. Neither of us will be moving until he wakes that puppet up.
You're okay.
You had me so worried.
I collapsed in relief, not even minding Violo's extra weight on my arms.
Treasure.
Of course I'm okay. I am very hardy, despite my fragility, you know. Honestly, I was hoping that I was wrong about possibly having a seizure soon.
You knew?
I was guessing.
He swatted me with the brush.
Your condition was quite the shock to my body, so it's not surprising it would culminate in a seizure. I was hoping that taking care of my body and keeping it stable would prevent it, but I was wrong. I should have had Violo siphoning off and stabilizing my energy, but he was so busy.
You know he'd never be too busy for you.
That doesn't make him not busy.
Beyond that, where is your father? Doesn't he normally hover around when you're not feeling well?
Only when I show severe signs of compromise, or someone I don't like is out and about. Since we trust you and I appeared fine, Father felt comfortable enough to go check on the seas.
He dragged his brush down his hair harshly.
I'm already going to receive quite the scolding when he wakes up. Can we not make it worse?
I'm not trying to scold you, Vivere. You're not a child. You're going to be my husband. He lets out a disbelieving humph. I mean it. I'm just so glad to see that you're okay. I'm surprised Violo isn't here, though.
From what the elementals are telling me, he got summoned into a conversation with Amare.
Of course.
He can't reject their summons. Since we are near the end of the experimental track, they're probably discussing that ship Nakari is sending here.
My blood ran cold. You knew?
Of course.
Of course we did. Nothing happens on this island that we don't know about.
It was that chair, wasn't it? That shifty chair. That chair that I just made up. It squealed on me. It's a stool pigeon. Amare said...
Amare lied, and we're both pretty sure they're lying right now about letting you leave alive.
What? Hamos would never. I didn't mention I'd begin to have my own doubts.
Amare does seem invested in wanting to get you away from us. Violo has already weighted heavily in terms of power. He is a lucidity. He has been blessed by life. You make a second gift from the fragments of dream. It heavily skews the balance of power further in Violo's direction. Amare doesn't like that, but they'll have to cope.
Vivere smiled down at me, reaching to stroke my cheek.
Treasure.
Of course, the fact that this means you need to stay by our side is a lovely side benefit.
I don't know. Vivere pouted, in a way similar to the way Violo did. I think I want to, though.
Well, it is a big decision. Luckily, you have time.
My sunshine.
Oh! Man, his back is all messed up. Who hurt him? Was it his father, who is now a meat zombie? They are so sweet together! Gosh dang it!
My sunshine.
Violo's replica sprang to life and wrapped himself around Vivere's neck.
My love.
Oh dear.
The sudden weight of Violo on Vivere's unbalanced frame sent him collapsing into Violo and I. I braced myself, wheezing slightly, while Violo couldn't seem to decide if he wanted to giggle or cry.
My sunshine, you had me so worried. We're crushing Espoir, you know.
I'm fine. You guys are fine. I'm just underneath the both of them. This is fine. Violo blinked a few times and slackened his grip. He leaned back against my chest to look up at me.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That's just straight up beautiful, by the way.
Right here. This is fine. Just me, in between those two, this is fine. This is the greatest ending ever. Let's just stop right here. We don't need no boats. We don't need to kill no gods. Let's just stay right here, just the three of us, in the bed together. Violo sat up on his knees on the bed. Vivere sat up straight, and I followed suit, not wanting to be collapsed on again. Violo began to fuss over Vivere, as the other man had predicted. I went to move to leave, but Violo's hand snatched my wrist before I could even think of it. His thumb rubbed against the skin of my forearm over and over.
Honestly, you are lucky that Espoir was there to help. I would have killed everyone otherwise.
Vivere and I shared a grimace. 'Cause we know he would have.
You should have told me you were still seeing an imbalance. I know. We could have solved this a lot sooner. Yes, I know.
Violo, enough. I patted the top of his head. What happened with Amare?
Well, that is a conversational shift.
I mean, there's a lot of things we could all do together in the bed, but I think we have actual work to do.
I'm curious as well. Were they talking about our dear treasure's rescue ship? They were actually asking me if I was planning on killing her sometime soon.
The ragging noise of surprise I let out had both men giving me pitying looks.
Apparently, now that the gift has been deciphered, we no longer require its host, and the host is a threat to the world or some crap.
Oh, you mean those three were going to just discard me? Ah.
You know how they are. Of course, when the little snow crow popped in, the story changed to talking about how they were going to free Duvide from our grasp. To be expected. I brought us some more time by mentioning that the experiments weren't technically over. I'm closer to done than I told them, and I plan on using that extra time to reinforce our security. That snake of theirs is probably going to slide its way in here.
A snake?
They shook their heads. Snake. A devil. Amare's lapdog. They're a brilliant mage, but they're awful with the dirty work of killing that isn't just obliterating foes with magic. For subtler deaths, they rely on it. Snake is a devil of deceit. It can perfectly hide itself as someone or something.
Oh no! Devils can't look like people. Not outside of the cursed ice mountain in the far north.
If it were still just a weak little thing that crawled down Hamos's mountain, sure, but it's been feeding for thousands of years. Modified with Amare's magic, no less. It's dangerous, and every time we think we're ready for it, it still gets in. Not this time. I'll figure it out. We've still got time.
Violo gave me a confident, almost cocky smile.
Dear.
Hee hee hee.
We'll keep you safe, treasure. I promise.
I met his smile with a nod. I trusted them to at least want to keep me safe. Whether Amare was really a threat or not, I wasn't sure. I still had some time to think about it. Thank you for playing. That was beautiful. Gosh dang it, every time I play this game, I love it more and more. I really like this story. I really like these characters, and I just want to be between them in the bed and, like, playing Game Boy in the bed with the boys and talking about flowers. I think the only good ending is the Poly ending, too, so that's nice. I wouldn't want to choose one over the other. These two are a package. You have to have them both. I was thinking about ending this episode and posing the questions to get people to talk in the comments by saying, what would you choose? Would you choose to go back to your cool life of being a magic mercenary, or would you stay with this adorable couple? But I think we're all thinking the same thing, that I just want to stay on the bed with Vivere and Violo. And gosh darn, here I thought the three gods, well, two gods, were on my side and actually going to help me, but no, they're going to betray me too, gosh dang it. At least Hamos knows where it's at. If you haven't seen the video with Hamos, the ice crow that they keep mocking, he's from the game Sacrarium Geles, in these videos here. Well, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, or interact in any way that is comfortable for you. And I'm happy to say we are well on our way to 100,000 subscribers. Shouldn't yell into the microphone. But anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Take care of yourself. Have a great night, and remember, there is always hope. That was good. Ooh, that was good. Yummy. Delicious.